Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Members present this evening are Council Members Gearboss, CO, Rice, Lesh, Harmount, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, and Mayor Morrow. From City staff, we have the Acting City Manager, the City Clerk, the Wastewater Treatment Superintendent, our Parks and Rec Director, and our City Engineer. And a few other staff members I think are in the audience. The rest of you, we welcome you. We encourage you to sign in on the back table. There are copies of the agenda on the back table, along with listening devices if you require them. Before I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted, I think there were a couple items added. One item under discussion regarding budget supplemental information. There was a change to agenda item 2577. Is that correct, Clerk Royal?
It was added, yes.
It was added, okay. And that may end up being deferred or postponed. We'll obviously get to that under new business. And then perhaps the city manager, acting city manager, can assist me. There's some supplemental material that was placed at my space, but perhaps copies were provided to all of council as well. I have a bid tabulation document. I suspect this is just placed here at my seat. Oh, everyone got one? Okay, very good. That's excellent. And then what about these two memos here from Coco Singh Industrial? Okay, and then there is looks like a rec center fact sheet.
Right, as we discussed our direct appropriations.
Okay, and then multi-page document regarding rec center Dectron unit replacement, which will be discussed during the our first presentation. And then I've got this document as well, easement contract, City of Saline, Washtenaw County, Michigan. Assessment, excuse me. Thank you. Okay.
There's the updated assessment contract that contains the non-disclosure wording.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Does everyone have copies of those documents either at their seat or were they provided to you electronically? Is anybody missing those documents? Okay, very good. Let me refer back to the agenda then. There will be a request to remove an item under the consent that was emailed out earlier today. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are additional amendments?
So moved.
To approve as submitted or as amended, Councilmember Seal? Sure. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Oh boy, that was right at the same time. I'll let Gearboss be the second, and I'll get you on the next one, Mr. Lesh. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. There are no absences, so we'll proceed to the first of two public comment periods. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time and make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state their name and address for the record. And again, remember this first public comment period is limited to agenda items, so if you please state the agenda item you are referring to, that would be greatly appreciated. Are there any comments from those in the audience this evening? I would defer to the city clerk. Were there any written comments provided in advance of tonight's meeting in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time? No, sir. Easy enough. Then we will proceed to the first of two presentations. First up is the Saline Rec Center Aquatic Center HVAC unit. And I believe we have a PowerPoint up on the screen. I believe everyone in the audience can see it as well. Acting City Manager Cole, Parks and Rec Director Lambert, you may begin when ready. Obviously, this item is just informational. Subsequent action will be taken in the future.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take this. Thank you everyone for having, oh, did I lose it?
Yep.
I lost it. Okay, I think we're back. Okay, thank you everyone for having us this evening. Before I get started, I do want to mention a couple people we have today in the audience. We have our Saline Rec Center facility maintenance staff member, Brian Sprouse, so he is available for any technical questions that anyone may have, especially with our current system. And then we have from IMEG, we have Evan Eschelbach, and he's the senior mechanical engineer who is taking the lead on the design engineering for the replacement of the Dectron. And I do note we have Sarah Zetlow, she's our aquatic manager, who is here as well. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us. So, make sure that works. Our first slide, we're just going to talk a little bit about the Aquatic Center and the value that it brings to our community. It provides, our Saline Rec Center Aquatic Center provides vital health and wellness benefits to the community. And I'm going to touch on some of these benefits. First and foremost, I want to mention our growing Saline Swim School. I think we started with a little over 80 participants in the program. I think we're up over 120, and it's a growing program. I know Sarah has a large list of people who are going to be going through our next series of skill testing. So that swim skill supports essential life skills through water safety training, as well as lays out the foundation for lifelong fitness and recreation. Another wonderful component of our aquatic center is our aquatic therapy and fitness classes. These are our low-impact exercise programs for all ages, but I want to point out that just they offer such exceptional benefits for our older population. We offer aquatic specialty programs such as adaptive swim lessons, which is a partnership program with Saline area schools, lifeguard training classes, competitive swim technique training, and more. Throughout the year, we have several aquatic events, just special events that bring families together, and they help promote a sense of community. We provide recreational opportunities for various camp programs, both internally and externally. So we have groups like from Saline Community Ed and some other private camps who come throughout the summer to utilize our aquatic center, and that provides a nice revenue source for us. We also have after-hours rentals and birthday parties. They create valuable memories for families and groups, as well as bringing in additional revenue for the center. And then finally, and quite importantly, is that the Aquatic Center is a significant draw for our membership and our day passes. So if anybody comes on, we have a snow day, there's a day off of school, it's just cold in the winter and families are looking for a place to go, we are a wonderful local destination, and we see our members and our visitors using these pools for lap swimming with fitness goals in mind, using our warm leisure pool for water walking or therapy, and many just come to play and have fun. So as you can see from this slide, the Aquatic Center contributes over $700,000 annually in revenues. And when we take a preliminary look at our annual expenses related to the pool operations, and this is a first look that we were going through. We anticipate about $400,000 to $450,000 annually in expenses, with about half of that going to staffing. So those are our lifeguards, our swim instructors, our managers. those required to keep these operations going. Other expenses are pool chemicals, as you can imagine, to keep the pool quality safe and within the limits. Activity supplies, regular maintenance costs, preventative maintenance costs, water, gas, electricity. So these are just some of the expenses that go into the operation of the Aquatic Center. So now I want to touch on what we're here for, which is to talk about the HVAC system. So our current Dectron HVAC system sits atop the roof of the rec center. It's essential to the Aquatic Center operations, working in the background to ensure that every visit is safe and comfortable. Without it, the facility simply cannot function. So some of the things that the HVAC system provides is temperature control, dehumidification, air quality management, and supplemental lab pool heating. It also maintains compliance with indoor air quality, ventilation, and safety standards by ensuring proper airflow and removing harmful chloramines from the environment. So I think if you ever walk into, we get a lot of people who walk into the rec center and say, oh my gosh, I smell the pool. We actually don't want that. We want a quality HVAC system that when you walk in, you don't necessarily smell those chloramines. So something that is moving the air along properly, making sure we have the correct temperature, the right dehumidification, so everything is operating smoothly. Next, we're going to talk about, it's a brief timeline, and I know a lot of you are, familiar with this. The current HVAC system, which we refer to as our Dectron, that's the brand, it was installed in 2004, and it replaced our original unit, which was installed in 1991. At the time, the projected lifespan for this was spec'd out to be 12 to 15 years. About 6 years later, we had an issue with the roof membrane. We we found that it was lifting. And so in response to this, in 2011, we had an independent study by Peter Bassow. It was determined at the time that the Dectron was undersized for the center, and it recommended a variety of adjustments to maximize the efficiency. Moving on for some of those recommendations, in 2015, we updated the ductwork, and this was intended to get a better airflow throughout the aquatic center. And then that took us all the way to 2016, 2017 when we replaced the roof because the roof had been damaged due to an inefficient HVAC system. So now that fast forwards us to about that end of the lifespan, 2018. So that right there is about 14 years into the current unit. And so factory service was brought in to provide like a complete overhaul of the system, and it did extend the life. They said we would get an additional 3 to 5 more years. So we actually went a little bit longer. So that takes us to about 2023. As many of you know, in fall 2023, Circuit 1, so we have 2 circuits in the system. Circuit 1 experienced a significant leak. So lost about 300 pounds of R2 refrigerant. With the aging compressor associated with that circuit, the technicians were really uncertain of whether or not any repairs would hold. Due to the high cost, the decision was made to operate on Circuit 2 alone. So from fall of 23, we've been operating on just 1 circuit. With the 2023 failure, it exposed the vulnerability of the system, which led the city to bring in IMEG for design engineering to replace the Dectron. So that's when we engaged those services, knowing that we were on borrowed time at that point. Unfortunately, this past February, so February 12th, Circuit 2 went down. We had the compressor on Circuit 2 had a serious failure, and it required us to close the aquatic center for repairs. We weren't getting air moving through the aquatic center. We were losing our temperature on our lab pool. 25 days after the closure, we were at least able to get the airflow going back through the system, and we were able to open our leisure pool. But the lab pool, we weren't able to bring up in temperature. We were still holding around, and Brian might be able to remind me of the low temperature we hit. We were around 64 degrees, yes. And normally that pool we maintain around, at a low end would be 78. If it hits below 76, we close the pool. Normally on a normal day-to-day, we're at 81, 82 degrees, okay? So 18 days after the leisure pool opens, so this is 43 days after the failure, we finally were able to reopen our lap pool. Repairs have been ongoing, and most recently, as I'm sure you've heard, we had a refrigerant leak on Circuit 1. That was on April 16th last week, and it led to our building evacuation. So we did have to call emergency services and evacuate the building just to make sure we didn't have any fires or anything serious going on. Technicians were able to meet us on site immediately and get control of that leak. So all in all, looking at this timeline, I can't stress enough that we are on borrowed time with the Dectron. It has far exceeded the projected lifespan. It is now operating on the edge of uncertainty. The February shutdown gives us a glimpse of what's at stake. We had lost programming, frustrated members, potential long-term facility damage. There was a lot of moisture that was built up initially, and we were even having water dripping from the ceiling during that time. So replacing it now is essential to avoid any further closures, protect the facility, and ensure a continued service to the community. So now we'll get into some more of the technical aspects. I want to invite Evan Eschelbach. He's, again, the senior mechanical engineer from IMEG to talk about the design engineering work they've done over the past several months and to walk us through proposed HVAC replacement.
Hi, I don't know, is this on? Can you
Make sure the green light is illuminated at the base, and you can pull that microphone forward, and you can also raise the height of the podium if you'd like.
Maybe not. So many buttons. Thanks. My name is Evan Eshelbach. As Sunshine has mentioned, I'm a mechanical engineer with IMEG, and we were contracted in the fall of last year to come in and help support and provide engineering for this replacement. One of the first things, obviously, that we did was we met with the team at the rec center to try to understand what was going on with the current system and sort of the key priorities therein. That was made, with all the failures, and at that point, I think just circuit one was down, that we were getting close to end of life on that, and there was concerns with, I think, indoor air quality as well as the humidity. Sunshine mentioned the Basso report, which I think you guys even were operating before that with a humidity in the 65-70% range, which is really too high. So, we had a chance to talk about with them what their operating conditions were and where we needed to be, as well as try to talk about sort of project planning and how we were going to execute that. So, one of the priorities here that was at the high end was sort of environmental efficiency. And so one of the couple of the systems here on this unit that we've spec'd is an energy recovery between anything that's being exhausted out. We're recovering that temperature and putting it into the outside air, as well as there is some waste heat or recycled heat sort of recovery both into the pool water, that's the pool water heating part of it, as well as into the air itself, into the supply air. With a new unit here, we are gonna change to a much more modern refrigerant here that's gonna be more easily serviced, but also a much lower global warming potential. So we're going to R454B. But I think one of the big differences here is kind of how this system is put together. So both from a durability and from a redundancy side. From a fan side, this unit comes with a fan array with multiple fans in it. I think there's 6 fans, so if one was to go down, you'd have multiples left, as well as they come with something that they call compressor wall. So basically there's 11 refrigerant modules or compressor modules in here, each with sort of an independent refrigerant circuit in there. And I believe, I think the Dectron had something like 300 pounds of refrigerant, and we're like 39, I think, with this new unit. So it's a current capacity, but also with looking forward to any potential expansion there. So the unit should be sized to meet both of those concerns. So to follow up a little bit on kind of the discussion on timeline here. So one of the first things that I know we brought up was, hey, there's going to be a shutdown to do this work. What time period should we focus on? And we're talking to Sunshine and the team. There's pretty much discussed either a spring shutdown or a fall shutdown would be preferred over summer or winter, definitely due to usage. And with a lead time of about 22 weeks, our target really was fall of 25 here. So we're still looking at executing it in that time frame. The other thing that we've gone through with the bidders and basically told them that the shutdown to the pool, we're looking at a 2-week shutdown for activities. Some of the construction may happen outside of that, but anything that affects operations would really be in that 2 weeks. The other thing, we do need to modify some of the steel on the roof for the new unit. But we wanted to make sure that we weren't affecting that new roof or that newer roof that you guys had there. And so we plan no penetrations to that roof or anything like that to try to make sure that, that roof stays waterproof, essentially, right? I think one of the other big improvements also here is going to be to the whole control side of things. You know, from '04 to 2025, there's been a lot of improvements on that side. And, you know, there's the ability to have remote monitoring, and factory monitoring and stuff like that. The other thing is, obviously, the new unit will come with a warranty. I believe it's a 2-year warranty and on everything, and then a 5-year warranty on the compressors themselves. You want me to do this one too, Sunshine?
Yeah, I mean, I can go ahead and touch on that. So we had our bid opening this past Thursday, so those bids are still, I think you have them in hand, but we're still, you know, reviewing them. We've asked IMEG to go through them. Our staff is still going through those bids and take a look. You know, they came in under $1.1 million for the entire work to be done. There was an alternate option to purchase the unit, you know, through the city, like independently, you know, to see if that would be of a cost savings. We were trying to take every angle possible to get the most bang for our buck. And then we plan to return in 2 weeks to the council to make a recommendation for approval of the contractor and the project is what our ask will be. So we wanted to give everybody enough time to kind of digest this information in the next next 2 weeks, to ask the questions, you know, to dive into it. If anybody would like to, you know, come to the rec center, take a walk through it, you know, more than happy. Bring your heavy coat. If it's cold outside, we can go up on the roof, your climbing shoes, so, yeah.
Thank you both. Acting City Manager Cole, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would like to thank IMEG very much for your assistance during this project, especially all the last minute requests that we've included and thrown your way. So all the information that you've given us has been extremely helpful. And a special thank you to Director Lambert for being here tonight and collating all this wonderful information for us and going through this bid process, because she handled this on her own and did a beautiful job.
Very good. Well, we appreciate Director Lambert's leadership on this. We thank the other members of the Rec Center staff for being with us and our guest. We appreciate the thorough rundown on this proposal. It's also great to be able to utilize the services of a City of Saline-based company. So that's wonderful. One question before I open it up for questions from my colleagues, and this might be for our guest and or for Director Lambert. I believe some time back when Director Lambert and I discussed this matter, there was the potential of having the HVAC Adectron unit on the grounds of the center, TEF Park, as opposed to having it on the roof, which on the surface would be advantageous for a number of reasons. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that appears to no longer be feasible?
Yeah, and I'll have Evan as well kind of jump in on that, but to get us going, yeah, it was definitely something we wanted to look at, just to see if that would be a benefit, both from a cost standpoint and as a maintenance standpoint. When IMEG went through that process of evaluating, they came back to the staff and we sat down and looked over all those details. And really, there'd be significant increase in work to be able to hook all the different lines into place and to run everything from the ground level up. We also had concerns about some of the utilities underneath the ground. We were a bit limited on where we could potentially place that unit. Evan, do you want to dive a little more?
Agreed, yeah. So certainly to put it on the ground, we would have to rerun a lot of the ductwork. Some of that's pretty large ductwork and the power feeder and all that sort of stuff. And there's I guess 2 sets of pipes that go up there. There's both the pool water heating, plus there's boiler piping, supply and return for both of those. So if we put it on the ground, all of that stuff would also need to be rerouted. Instead, if we keep it where it is, we're replacing 5, 10 feet, whatever, between the unit and the roof and the unit, right? As well as, potentially needed to prepare the foundation for that and those types of things. So, it certainly can be done, but our opinion was it there'd be more cost there than putting the unit back where it is currently.
Very good.
And another thing we looked at too was, would it last longer, right? Would the lifespan be expanded if we had it on the roof versus the ground, or the ground versus the roof? And I think it was kind of a toss-up, right? Because it's exposed a little bit more when it's up on the roof, but then it's not exposed to the winter plowing and the snow buildup and some of the things in the salt, that could impact it. And then we were also looking at noise considerations with the adjacent park, fencing requirements.
Right. And maybe just people, it's a lot more accessible if it's on the ground versus, on the roof. It's pretty hard to mess with it.
Well, I appreciate the explanation. That's exactly what I needed. My apologies to my colleagues. Does anybody recall who I started with 2 weeks ago for questions? Mm-hmm. Was it Councilmember Rice? Okay, then I'm going to start with Councilmember Harmount today and end with Councilmember Rice. Please recall that this will be an enumerated action item on our council agenda in 2 weeks' time. So please, for the time being, let's focus on questions. I'll give you 5 minutes, and we may even have time for a second round at the conclusion of after we get through everybody at the dais. Councilmember Harmount, the floor is yours for 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Yeah, I submitted my questions ahead of time regarding mostly the unit, and it sounds like we've landed, just to make sure I understand where we are, we've landed on the unit that we're going to use. And,
Yes.
And then we are going to, we're bidding out the contract to install the unit. Is that where we're at right now?
Yes,
Currently?
we landed on the Soresco unit, and they are based out of, I think they're manufactured in Ottawa, Canada.
I believe that's what they said.
Yeah. And so that was what that was recommended by IMEG. And what was your second part? I'm sorry.
That we're moving forward with doing bids for the contract of the installing portion of
Yes, so we received those bids this past Thursday.
Is it appropriate for me to ask questions about the unit?
Definitely.
Okay. One of the questions that I asked, because it's a big expense, and we just want to know. I know that we've met the lifespan of the old one and everything. I know one of the considerations is upfront cost and maintenance as well. But with regards to the utility usage, do we have any understanding of our current situation for utility usage for energy and how much we're spending versus what the projected savings is going to be with this new unit to help offset the costs that we're going to have to, was there a difference between the different units that we looked at with regards to that?
Multiple people are going to be answering this question for you. So just to let you know too, there were definitely multiple units looked at, and I'm going to let our experts speak to that first.
Yeah, so I guess early on in the process, one of the first things we did, one was reach out to several of the mechanical contractors that have worked on there, just to see if they had any recommendations as far as units or definitely units to stay away from and stuff like that. And we also reached out internally to some other experts in IMEG to be like, hey, what type of units do you like? So we pursued, I believe, the Soresco unit and one from Innovent, I believe. Sorry for, and to look at those units. I will and I think Soresco was the one that we, liked the best out of that. A couple of those features I think help with sort of a maintenance sort of side. One is because they've sort of got that, what they call compressor wall, all marketing term, right? But if there's 11 of those units, if one went down, you would just replace that unit. Obviously, also, if one of those went down, I think the current unit has essentially 2. So you have 2 circuits. So if one went down, 50% of your capacity went down here. If one went down, 10%, right? 10% of your unit. So you obviously want to address that, but you have some different bandwidth there for repair, for durability, or I guess not really durability, but it wouldn't necessarily shut you down if you had a failure, right? Same with on the fan side, there's multiple fans in there and stuff like that for the same reason. I guess the other thing from that sort of efficiency side is These are ECM motors, which are more efficient than the typical motors that are there, so there's some efficiency there. That being said, this is a bigger unit for capacity reasons, so if you're getting more capacity, power-wise, you may not see a lot of savings there, but.
Have we run an understanding of what the net operating cost would be for the comparisons of these units?
We have not.
Okay. And then you said that you also were taking into account air quality and what these units did with regards to purification of the air. Do we have a comparison if we looked at all these items from like a upfront cost, a maintenance cost, a utilities net savings, and air quality? Were these all criteria that were considered for the bids on the units?
They were all considered in the unit, yes. We did not create like a matrix or whatever where we compared all that directly, but they were considered, yes.
Thank you.
It was almost exactly 5 minutes. Nice job, Councilmember Harmon. And thank you for outlining your questions in writing in advance of tonight's meeting. I know that staff really appreciated that. Councilmember Lesh, you have 5 minutes if you'd like it.
Just a couple comments. I first want to give credit to Brian for being able to keep that monster that we've had working up there for so long. That's no small feat. I really am impressed by this unit you seem to have picked out because modular is obviously the way to go now. The reduction in the amount of a new coolant is huge because that old coolant was so expensive anyway. I feel like this is a good fix. Obviously, the rec center needs a lot of help yet, but we got to keep that aquatic center running. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Lesh. Councilmember Seo, 5 minutes of questions if you'd like it.
Also, just a comment. I was pleased to see that you considered all the possible iterations of this thing that you could, and that you're bringing us one that is as modular as it is. I think it portends well for the decision-making process you're all engaged in. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, you have 5 minutes for questions if you'd like it.
Thank you. Just a couple of really quick questions. So, what would be the expected lifespan of this unit?
So we asked that to the vendor this morning, actually, and he said 20 years.
So 20 years.
And if I can jump on that too, and that is provided that we, provide proper maintenance as we have in the past with the current one. So if we neglect it, if we're, not, doing preventative maintenance, changing out filters, things like that on a regular basis, that might be shorter. But as long as we continue with the preventative maintenance, we should get 20 years. And one thing I want to stress, and I know Evan touched on this, with this new unit, with the advancement in technology, we will actually be receiving instant notifications if there is any type of a failure, an alert, or what have you. In the past, really, Brian walks in at 4:45 in the morning and he checks the panel to see if there was any alarms from overnight. We don't get any types of notifications. So if there was an alarm that went off at 11 o'clock at night, now that's 6 hours later that we're seeing this. This way, not only will those alerts go to us, they will also go to the manufacturer, so they will see that there's an issue so that we can attend to it.
Thank you. So speaking to the modular aspect of it, what would we require? Would all 11 modules be working on the rec center as is now, or would there be units that would not be activated?
From a capacity standpoint, I would expect currently that you typically wouldn't be running at full capacity with the current, size and what's in that currently. There is some additional capacity there for, that future expansion.
So that leads into my next. So how much capacity is there? What are you basing this on for future build out?
So there's two things here. So, the only thing we got from a future standpoint was, I think, a concept that another
2,000 square feet potentially.
Yeah, not that other firm put together. So both on the extra square feet as well as, there are sizing based off the type of pool that it is, and that being a family pool with some features. There's additional, humidity created or additional dehumidification, I guess, required for that. So we based it off of, that's a approximate size of that new pool size with the spa, pretty much as is, and the lap pool size.
And it does also, it's seasonal. I don't know if Brian could, attest to that. When we have cold winter nights, it's going to take more of a draw off the system than, say, when we're in October, when, we're at a moderate temperature, maybe low humidity outside. So it really kind of depends on what's going on the outside that determines how much, how hard that system is working.
And with your company, have you had experience working with aquatic centers and such? Is that so? You've had direct experience with this, because I know that's where we sort of had a problem with the roof initially. It was the roof designer was not somebody that worked with aquatic centers, so just making sure. And I apologize because we just got these bid sheets now, so I'm trying to quickly look at this and understand. So there's an alternate bid that's half the price.
So there's several, there's a base bid, which includes, I don't know exactly what you're looking at. Is there just one alternate in there?
Yeah, so there was the base bid that include both the purchase of the Soresco unit as well as the installation, right? And all that which goes into the installation. The alternate would be to deduct the price of that Soresco unit so that the city could purchase it separately, and then with that alternate bid, then the company would just be receiving it and then going forward with the install. Then we had two additional smaller alternates, which had to do with the makeup boiler. So the lap pool has been operating without a makeup boiler since I believe 2018, and that's been quite a challenge. And it's really been exposed since we've had this failure. The Dectron, although helps to assist in the heating of the lap pool, it solely is not able to keep up with that. It's too much of a strain. We keep tripping the system out every time we hit these lower temperatures and we start dropping that lap pool. But what will happen with like the Soresco, it will assist with that, but we really do need a makeup boiler to maximize efficiency. Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, hold on. I know you got some additional questions. We'll have a second round here. Let me jump to Councilmember Gearbaugh. If he'd like 5 minutes for questions, then we'll end with Councilmember Rice and then do a second round if necessary.
Thank you. Yeah, most of my questions were regarding the purchase through the city. So the idea would be that we would purchase it. Are we also considering what potential tariffs may be effective when you said Ottawa?
That was a great question. Actually, I wrote some notes on that. That was part of our meeting today because we met with Tony Franchini from Thermalnetics. And that, I think Evan, I don't know if it was you or Ryan, one of the staff asked that question directly, and they said that actually we shouldn't be impacted by the tariffs, that they meet the USMCA requirements and are exempt, and they also don't anticipate any delay in the timeline for delivery. So that was reassuring news. However, I will say, I mean, anything can change at any moment. So we say that right now, but the reality is that could change at any moment.
So I guess if I can speak to the idea with that alternate was, we're going to base bid, you purchase the unit, you install it, and then from an alternate that, that if we take the unit out, a lot of times they'll put markups and stuff on there. We knew it was a really expensive unit, and we wanted to see what, if we took that unit up, if there was quite a bit of savings from doing so. So that was the idea of the alternate. I'm sorry for.
Was there any savings though?
I don't think so.
Not really. Nothing. Not significant.
That's what I want to make sure, because I would rather have it go through a company that knows it.
Yes.
Right.
Worth us trying to follow up and any kind of thing like that.
Yeah, we wanted to. Sorry.
I just want to take a moment and add that we just received those bids late last week. They have not been thoroughly vetted. We did not distribute them because we haven't finished our review, calling the references and looking through them ourselves. We were requested to provide those this evening. You'll have the opportunity also to review it again at the next meeting where we can actually consider it for a decision.
No, it's helpful to understand that proposal because that does make a consideration of that. what other aspects have been reviewed? And one of my biggest concerns right now, and I'm going to say it's for the overall rec center, with the issue that we had with the fire department having to show up because of the leak of the refrigerant, I'm getting very concerned about the safety of the facility in general and what is being done to evaluate the whole thing at this point in terms of, we just had to pay for a new fire marshal. So I'm concerned of what's going to be done to make sure that the building is safe at this point in time. This seems like it's another one of these things that it's a plug in a hole, but the dam may burst. And so that's a question I have for that and follow-up that I expect to see. The other one, as you know, Tecumseh is doing the exact same thing right now. And they look like they're doing a little bit more because they're replacing other parts of the mechanicals in the pool. They're shutting theirs basically down for 4 months, where we're only shutting it down for 2 weeks. I understand there may be a lot more work to their project, but they actually were able to run their Dectron unit for 36 years. I'd like to know what they did and what they're bidding there on for their new one. The other question is, with regards to, I know we're fixing the Dectron unit, but as you mentioned, all the ductwork, all the piping, all of that, have we evaluated all of that for its condition? Because that's pushing 35, 36 years now, similar of, are we repairing one unit where the pipes may blow out or something like that? And I don't know what that evaluation is. Again, my whole thing keeps asking, have we considered all of the issues that are associated with this? And we know it keeps rolling and rolling. We didn't anticipate $150,000 this year. I want to know what we're going to actually expect. Is it $1 million? Is it 1.5? Is it $2 million? Just to do this Dectron approach.
Some of those items you may want to research and follow up on, but if you
Yep, so the questions, go for it.
if you care to respond, we would welcome that now.
Absolutely. So one thing that I want to assure you is that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the stakeholders, the members of the Saline Rec Center stay safe. Pointedly, the emergency protocols worked beautifully. We were able to get everyone out of the building. Everyone remained safe. The fire department arrived and let everyone know that it was safe to return inside the building when it was safe to return inside the building. I think it's a beautiful idea for us to contact Fire Chief Spurley and ask him if there are any other measures that we can take as we notice that our Dectron is in the midst of failing. What other items should we be training our staff on? He may have some other good pointers for us moving forward. As far as the piping, I will lead IMEG to answer that after I'm done here for a moment. And then my general consensus, the reason that the Dectron lasted 20 years versus the 36 years, one, the life expectation is 20 years. So it did last the entire time that it was projected to last. But the unit was undersized for the Aquatic Center, which left us in a situation where it was constantly working more to do the jobs it was supposed to do. And that would be my guess as to why the less of a life with our Dectron versus theirs. But Director Lambert or the folks from IMEG may have a better clue to that.
Well, and I agree, yes, and that's what we've been told. Brian, did you want to get up and speak?
Yep, Brian, why don't you, Mr. Sproul, why don't you come to the microphone? Again, make sure the green light is illuminated at the base. Feel free to adjust the podium as needed.
I think as far as 36 years on a Dectron, that would be possible with ours too, just coming at cost. And I think at this point, we're kind of run out of the money to kind of keep it going, and we think it's better off to replace at this point.
Oh, I understand, I know. And my concern was that, one, it was undersized, the other issue, and I think it leveled on malfeasance by the former administrator, was to allow a machine to fail and be overworked the way it was because we didn't replace those compressors. Not to say what you guys did, but I think the oversight should have been done differently. But that's here or there. But at this point, we have to move forward.
Before I move on to Councilmember Rice, I do think the suggestion that was just made of making contact with our peers in Tecumseh was a very good idea. Comparable community to us in many ways. They have a municipally owned facility. We might be able to garner some keen insights as we move forward with the replacement of our HVAC system, since they're currently undergoing a similar initiative. Councilmember Rice, you have 5 minutes if you'd like them.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Gearbout touched on one thing that I was going to say, that during our parks tour a couple weeks ago, Director Lambert and I did talk about how this is not new to communities with rec centers that are 20, 30, 40 years old. Like it's happening in a lot of communities around us. I know you named just like a few while we were chatting. So this, aquatic and HVAC system issue for rec centers that were built in the 90s, like the time has come. So this is not strictly just a Saline issue, but I think having those conversations with other communities and just kind of seeing what they're doing and kind of keeping up with the latest trends, and I'm sure you all are doing the same thing, I think is a prudent thing to do. One question I have for Brian, sorry that you sat down. So in-house maintenance of a new unit like this, is that something feasible? Will you need some additional training, or will there be some maintenance built into once we get this installed?
So as far as our mechanical maintenance, we use contractors. We've always had a contract with all of our mechanical maintenance. I'm not trained to do work on HVAC. I can do it, but legally you wouldn't want me to. So we try to leave that to professionals.
But as far as like alerts go and things like that, will there be some like training built into it so that you all know what to look for? Okay, perfect. That sounds great.
There's both factory startup and training included with the unit.
And you're the one that has been babying this thing for many, many years, or keeping an eye on it, gently talking niceties to it. You're comfortable with what this engineering scope is and what we've put out to bid?
I'm very impressed with it.
Nice. Great. I think that's a lot. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Rice. Just one comment before I see if there's additional questions. Councilmember Gearbaugh asked or inquired on a topic that I would have inquired about, which is tariffs. This is my own opinion, but I feel very strongly. The United States at the moment has a foolhardy and inane trade policy, and we're enacting draconian tariffs, which will have a negative impact on taxpayers, on businesses, and organizations across our nation and region. So I'd be remiss if I didn't articulate that concern this evening, and in the next 2 weeks, I would like some additional clarification because I think these issues are going to come up time and time again as we make purchases and approve the allocation of financial resources for technology, equipment, material that are coming from outside of the country. And we need to understand the cost, and we need to be able to articulate in a very clear and compelling way to the people that we represent that these policies will have an adverse impact on our ability to conduct the business that the normal business that we have become accustomed to over the past several decades. I'll get off my high horse. Councilmember Harmon, do you have any additional questions for our guests or for staff this evening?
No, I don't.
Okay. Councilmember Lesh?
No, sir.
Councilmember Seo? No, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, I know you do, so please proceed.
Just one quick question for you. On the bids, is it unusual that they're both exactly the same dollar amount?
Yes.
Why? I don't know, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, it just sort of, I just wasn't sure whether there was a plug and play, and so it's going to be a fixed fee.
I don't know how you plug and play. Obviously they could, the unit I would expect to be the same cost to all the bidders. But I assume they're going to self-perform some of that. They're going to have some subs. I don't know how that was. Well, I think once I saw that, I'm like, are we sure they're the same? Was there not a typo? So
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you about that. And then my other question is for Director Lambert, which is just the timing aspect of it. And you're saying 2 weeks, and I think that might be aggressive. I feel like sometimes we overpromise, underdeliver. So I'm kind of cautious about that time frame. But the other piece is that when we were looking at the capital improvements plan, right on the heels of this is doing the pool decking, the pool floors, which is going to also require the pool to be closed again. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand. It's really difficult to ask people to constantly be patient and wait. And so I think, that's what I think Tecumseh is looking at, a one big, get it all done at once. We're closing for a period of time and then we're moving on. Because I keep wondering, every time you close this pool, are people going to go find a different swim school or decide that there's someplace else that meets their needs? And I know that we've got agreements with when our center is closed, we were able to use other ones. Are they going to look and say, well, you know what, that center is a little bit more reliable. Oh, it's a little bit more modern. And so I just don't know how many times we want to shut the door to people. And so that's a really big concern for me right now.
Sure, and that's something we've certainly discussed within our staff, even with our meetings with IMEG, taking a look at that timeline with the 2 weeks. You know, I do agree that's a tight time frame, but you know, we are prepared. At least in this situation, we'll be able to give advance notice, unlike when we had the unexpected shutdown that lasted 43 days for our lab pool, and we were, you know, at that point kind of scrambling to find partnerships and, you know, place people elsewhere. One thing we learned from the shutdown, our customers really like our aquatic center. I would say, you know, if you talk to our aquatic manager, if you talk to our facility maintenance, we've had customers coming up to us, just, they were so eager to get back in the pools. We have 6 lap lanes, you know, many went over to Mary Lou. It's you know, it doesn't have a deep end of the pool. Doing flip turns was a bit challenging at the shallower part. And it was, you know, less lanes, no leisure pool. So I think, in a way, people came back, they were so excited. So 2 weeks, you know, we will do our best to offer alternative places for people to swim. We will look into alternative, you know, places for, you know, some of our programs to take place, and we'll be prepared for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. Councilmember Gearbaugh, any additional questions?
Just a couple statements. The Tecumseh one, just FYI, they're going to close for 4 months, and then they're going to do the roof next year and close for another couple months. So they're approaching it. Fortunate for Tecumseh, their school system is supporting their community pool, unlike ours. You know, we have a lot of millage and such that could come to support it, but fortunate for Tecumseh, they're looking forward to supporting their entire community. The other question I had, there's a number of statements and things that were made here that I think will be addressed, hopefully, when we review things during the task force, which begins to meet next Monday. I just, again, will state that this is one fix, but there's multiple millions of dollars that need to be done to this facility, and the ability for it to be a sustainable facility and backing it with this community is something that is very concerning for me at this point in time. And this is just another example of $1 million here, $1 million there. Our community and our citizens can't afford to keep doing this. So, thank you.
Councilmember Rice, any additional questions or comments?
Just one quick thing to add that, again, in our discussions last week or the week before, Director Lambert and I were talking about the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Lou is actually going to close for a short period of time as well, and they're going to send their guests over to us. So we, you know, these are not unique things. It feels very unique when you're only, you know, a mile or two away from it. But again, I just go back to these rec centers where this was a big program in the 90s to get recreation into communities, and we are all just hitting the brink of all of these things starting to really, really need some investments. And again, you know, as part of the Rec Center Task Force coming up, it's going to be great to kind of like lay that all out and really discuss it, and then hopefully get some feedback from the community on, you know, what the value of this really is and what the community is willing to do, you know, to keep it around if they're still willing to do it. So these are tough conversations that we have to have with, you know, both city staff and our communities to see, you know, what the value is in all of these recreation centers, you know, going forward, because, like I said, the time has come for many of these.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate your time this evening. Excellent presentation. Director Lambert, Acting City Manager Cole, thank you very much. We look forward to revisiting this issue as an enumerated discussion item at our first meeting in May. And in the interim period, if council members do have additional questions or concerns, please direct those through the City Manager's office. We'll transition now to the second presentation, which is an update on our wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation. I would invite Mr. Brian Rubel to the podium to begin as soon as his PowerPoint is up on the screen. Mr. Rubel and I spoke briefly last week. I think his PowerPoint will take about 5-10 minutes, and then we will open it up for another round of questions from council members, starting with Councilmember Harmon and ending with council members Gearbaugh and myself.
Well, good evening. Nice to be back in front of you. We're about halfway through, and it seemed like a good time to just give you a really quick update on where we are. And actually, we're to a point where things are starting to actually look like improvements. They're not looking like big holes like they have been the last year. So this is really where the project gets quite exciting and quite valuable as we get to bringing things online. So Again, just a rundown of the project, and I've got some graphics I think that will help. We're adding a new headworks facility, which is the very first process. It processes the wastewater in its raw form so it can be pumped. It gets rid of things like, big rags and other things so the biological process can occur later on. We're adding a maintenance building, improving the facilities for the staff to maintain the equipment. We're adding a primary clarifier, which is the next step in the process to settle out the heavy, large materials. Then the real big effort is the new biological process. We're moving to activated sludge or the aeration tanks, and that combined then with the secondary clarifiers is called the secondary treatment process at the plant. Wet weather storage will be added, which I think is a very important part of the project to capture wet weather as it occurs so that we don't overwhelm the processes downstream. And we're changing the solids handling. So the treatment plant, of course, separates clean water from biosolids, sludge-type material. And we're changing that from strictly digesting, storing, and applying it to farm fields to where it can be dewatered and landfilled. And we think that will have advantages in the future as regulations change and make that even more challenging to put onto farm fields. Lastly, we are improving some instrumentation away from the plant at other pump stations. We did it last year, the year before, at 2 pump stations, and we're going to add that same instrumentation at additional pump stations so that the plant can better monitor what is occurring out in the system and respond to it. So this is a graphic of your site as it exists now, and I actually showed you the same graphic a little over a year ago. The yellow indicates where we're doing work at the facility, and I'm going to go through those kind of spot by spot and give you an update on where we are with each of those. So the new headworks building is in the southwest corner of the plant. That was scheduled for July startup. I think it's been pushed back about 1 week to the beginning of August due to the wet weather. They had to respond to some stored water in the building. Only a few days of a change, and I just got notified of that last week. So again, that's where we will separate the big, heavy, the stringy, the rags from the wastewater. And that will be your pump station, your main electrical station, and send the water up the hill. I tried to get a photograph, kind of that same perspective of that graphic a minute ago, and it didn't turn out to be the most aesthetic photograph in the world. There's scaffolding around it as they assemble the masonry, some plastic to protect the masonry from the cold weather, and some storage devices. But it is coming along. That was about 3 weeks ago. I think it probably looks a lot better this week than it did when I took that photo. The maintenance building, again, is a 2026 project. That equipment has all been ordered, so it's on its way. It's being manufactured and will be set up in next year. The primary clarifier is getting prepped right now. That will be late this year when that is put online. And the wet weather storage tank will be a 2026 project. It's kind of on a spot really where they're using to stage and keep equipment and things, so as soon as they get other parts of the job done, they're going to move over to this part of the project. And again, another photo image of that. I do have a really good update here on the activated sludge or the aeration tanks. That's coming along quite well. I think you'll see that in the photos next. And again, that's the biological process right there. That's where the microorganisms really break down that wastewater. And then we settle all those organisms out in that secondary clarifier at the upper left part of the screen there. And again, that's just a zoom of that. And I actually have some photographs then of this process. This, on the left side in the foreground, they are excavating for the secondary clarifier. It actually is kind of bowl-shaped if you're out there. So they're getting ready to get that formed, and then they'll start pouring concrete there to make that clarifier. And then behind it, you'll see the aeration tanks. look very similar to the graphic I just displayed, and here's a close-up of it on the right side from the opposite side. So I'll get closer. You can see that those tanks are really quite far along. That was the last week of March. Actually doing quite well with that part of the construction. So the schedule, we started all of this actually back in the fall of 2022. We went out to bids in spring of 2023. We've been marching along. We got started with the construction contract in the fall. The contracted substantial completion date is May 31st, 2026, so just over a year from now. They're about 5 weeks behind that, and that's due to the soil challenge that we had last year. They initially estimated 60 days that might cost them, and they've shrunk that down to about 5 weeks now. So they're really doing quite well on trying to keep shrinking that and meeting the date. So we have accomplished a few things that may not be visible. One of the parts of the contract is to improve your control system at both wastewater, and because the same people control it and the same software can control the water plant, the contract also included some work at the water plant to convert that control system. And I'm pleased to be able to tell you that has been accomplished. The water plant is now being operated from brand new software. You were limping along really at 2002 software that we converted over. So that is the software then that will be implemented at the wastewater plant this summer to run all the new processes as we add them. Most of the equipment has been ordered. Things are pretty much on their way. There's a few things I know that the contractor still is finalizing, but quite a bit of the products are actually at the site right now waiting to be installed. And they've done a pretty good job of installing the underground utilities. You don't see those, of course, they're buried, but that's come along quite well. There's a few exceptions to that, but they've done quite well with getting those ready then to connect to the above ground systems as they come on board. So the next group of milestones, that headwork startup was scheduled for late July. I think it's now the first week of August. That does not change the end date of the project as a whole. Then the aeration system will come on in September, and the primary clarifier in November. So things are really going to start to be happening quite rapidly here in the next 12 months. And that's about it as far as my update. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Briggs and his staff. Anybody that's been out at the wastewater plant knows that they are really working right in the middle of a major construction project. They really don't have a lot of elbow room with all the heavy equipment and piles of soil. They've been remarkably patient through this whole process. So
we appreciate you saying that, because it is a challenge while working with a project of this magnitude. So, Mr. Briggs, we thank you and your staff for your patience, flexibility, and adaptability. And I'm sure that will continue for the ensuing months until this project wraps up towards the end of summer 2026. Director Briggs, before we entertain questions from the dais, is there anything you'd like to add at this time?
No, nothing specific. Right?
Okay. Hang tight, because there might be some questions best addressed by you. Councilmember Harmount, can I start with you? Questions for Mr. Rubel or Director Briggs?
Yeah. I had submitted a couple questions up front, so I'm just going to read some of those. So that were answered to myself. That were there any additional costs anticipated? I know we had some setbacks with the storm. Did that set us back further financially? I think you had anticipated that, or you had responded that the answer is no, that we didn't have any further setbacks or costs related to that.
Well, we have asked the contractor to have any equipment that was exposed to the water evaluated before it's installed and started, because we want the manufacturers to state that they are as new condition and their warranties stand. We have not been notified that there's any cost associated with that. I clearly will keep staff informed if that is the case, but that has not been the case up to now.
Okay. Also, the other question that I had was, when all is said and done, what are some of the anticipated things that we'll see as a benefit? And you had responded that there is going to be significant reduction in smell. And then another question that I had was related to the cost of running when we have our renovated, is there a possibility for, is it going to be, operating costs going to be less than what we're experiencing with our current conditions?
I'm a little bit of a disadvantage. I believe Mr. Briggs responded to those questions, so.
Mr. Briggs, would you like to elaborate on that point? Sure. Okay. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Rubel, sharing the microphone with Superintendent Briggs for a moment.
In my thinking way is that, we have a big capital investment, obviously. Is there a possibility for some of these efficiencies to offset this capital cost, is where my thinking is on that?
Well, we're probably going to achieve some efficiencies with the more modern, updated equipment. The downside is we're still going to be running a lot of different pieces of equipment, and the PMs are going to have to increase to keep up with that. We have new equipment that the guys are going to have to learn how to manage and maintain. Not completely different. Some of them are motors and blowers and stuff like that, but like the screw press for compacting solids for landfill. None of the guys have operated that before, so it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for the guys. But I think that when we're all said and done, ideally, we won't have to run everything all the time. We'll have like one of the clarifiers offline because we won't need it, but then we can put it online during, heavier weather. So I think we'll have some efficiency, some savings that way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Harmon. Councilmember Lesh, any questions for Superintendent Briggs or our guest, Mr. Rubel?
Just one for Superintendent Briggs. You probably won't be able to answer this anyway because there's so many moving parts going on out there. But since the switch over to the Headworks building and the new clarifier are going to be happening during probably some of the warmer months of the summer, and being one of the many Saline residents that live in proximity to the plant, do you anticipate any additional odors?
Actually, I think they'll lessen. Again, there's going to be some changes, so we're not sure what kind of odors we may develop, but we have some ways we think of covering those odors up. I think over in Kalamazoo they use some type of system for their stuff that's exposed. Ideally, we do it in a manner so that it cycles fairly quickly, so it doesn't basically sit and rot and makes more odors. So that would be my ideal plan, but again, we'll have to wait and see how everything works out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lesh. Councilmember Seal, any questions for our guests this evening?
Two of them. First, Mr. Rubel. Mr. Rubel, in your picture of the new aeration tanks and secondary clarifier, the progress that's being made, in the background, those are the RBCs, right?
Keep going back. Go back one more.
Yeah, is up at the top there, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
You caught a change that we made to the project after bidding. We bid the job with some solar panels, and we did not elect to proceed with that due to the cost. So I neglected to take those off of that image.
Not that. In this picture.
Go back one more.
Yeah, one more, I think. There you go.
Up in the upper.
Oh, yes, the RBCs are to the right.
They will go away.
They will go away.
Okay. Well, any idea when those are going to be gone?
I would have to look at the schedule. We have to get the new aerated activated sludge tanks aeration system up and running this fall, and then I'm guessing it would be the winter when those go away.
Are those aeration tanks and the secondary clarifier open to the atmosphere?
They are. We have talked about that in this.
Is that going to create an opportunity for odor?
And I'm pretty certain I remembered exactly how I answered that question last time it was asked. There is a musty-like smell that occurs around those tanks. I have never considered that objectionable. but it will smell like a musty area, a composty type of smell.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seal. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, questions for our guests?
Thank you.
Yep, go ahead. I'll stop her time.
Throw in as far as the RBC is going away, so it's going to be a stepped process. Because when they put the new final clarifier in, and we start using that, then we take one of our old clarifiers out of service so that we can run new piping so it changes its purpose. So in that process, ideally what we'll be doing is running half of the process through aeration and half of it through the RBCs to go to the third, the last clarifier that will be changed. So it's kind of going to be a step process. It's not like we can put it online and take it out. We just got to do like half of the time.
We have one more question, Your Honor, that's just brought it up.
Yep, you had time, so please.
Is there any residual value to those RBCs?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, definitely not.
It's definitive.
Thank you, Mr. Seal. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I actually was going to ask about the RBCs too, because I noticed in the CIP, we actually are budgeting, I think, $50,000 a year for maintenance on them.
That's kind of a just-in-case scenario. The gearboxes cost $30,000, and right now I have one gearbox out of service in one of the trains, and I'm not worried about that right now. My hope is, I also have a gearbox on the shelf, so if something happens, I can put one on. But I don't want to put that one on and then order another one for a spare, and then we never use it, and we spend $30,000, and now we got to try and get rid of the thing. So I'm trying to be very careful on where we spend our money on these old pieces of equipment.
Good answer, thank you. So I'm going to ask sort of the one big thing, which is the wet weather tank. Is there any opportunity to accelerate the timeline for it, since that was a big issue with our flooding?
I actually asked that question when we started the project. I wanted it on as soon as we could. The contractor can't change at this point. It's just due to the constraints on the site. They're limited in space, and so they're literally moving things around as they finish. So they're using the space of that tank right now for soil and construction trailers and things like that. And until some of the other things get done, they can't physically move to that process.
Okay.
Just one quick thing, they are doing steps towards that, like with the new influent building. There's going to be a pipe that runs out of that up to that tank. So that's been stubbed out to where they could get some other work done in and around where that pipe had to go. But the actual connection, again, is going to have to wait until the tank actually gets built.
Okay. And then that leads me kind of into the next topic, on the same topic, which about the flooding. So our plant is, it's downhill. Is the flow to it. So we're having flooding issues at the lowest points in the buildings, correct? Is that where the flooding is occurring?
You want to take that? Yeah. Okay.
So that the day that we got the rain, we knew that it was going to rain. So we tried to manipulate the UV so that we would be okay. And to do that, the way they're set up, there's 3 of them, and the water comes in on one and then works its way back to the other 3. Well, if you leave one open and don't leave the lights submerged and water going by it, you burn them up. So we basically had to throttle one down to push flow over to the second one. So you got like 1.5 open kind of thing. And then as it comes up, that it's not fully at full capacity that way, but as it comes up, then it would be. Well, as it turns out, that night, the 1.5 inch rain in 45 minutes was more than we could handle. By the time we got guys in there from the alarms, that we had high flows, we got the second one open, but it turns out we needed 3 open and didn't realize that. And by the time we realized we needed 3 open, it was underwater. So we couldn't get to it to open it. It was in 4 or 5 feet of water by that time. So that choke point backed things up into the filter building, which caused water to come out of the doors of the filter building. And that's where most of the water came from, was out of the filter building. So, and then the fact that we had the construction going on, so our drain that would take the water back to the head of the plant has a bag on it to keep silt out of it because of a lot of sand and when it rains. But I'm afraid if it hadn't been like that, we would have just recirculated it and it wouldn't have made any difference. So we're trying to get.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Since we know we have at least a full year before we're going to have that wet weather tank, is there something that we can build temporarily to, like a bypass of some sort, or something that we can do?
There is a drain at the end of that filter building. We've talked about it briefly since it happened a couple of weeks ago. I haven't really gone out but again, that drain would go back, I think to the head of the plant. So again, we're just recirculating it and not, you got to remember that before we started this project, we had that old EQ basin back there that we thought we weren't using, but we actually were using, and it benefited us that we didn't realize it. So now that it's not there, everything's shoved through the plant instead of some of it temporarily going to the EQ and then coming back, like kind of what we want to do with the wet weather storage tank.
Right.
Let me stop you there because we reached 5 minutes, but we'll do another round if necessary. Councilmember Gearbaudy, I'll give you 5 minutes for questions if you'd like it.
Just a couple. I mean, one is, how large is that tank going to be again? How many gallons is it going to hold?
1.5 million. Yeah.
So that hopefully will help resolve that concern. I know the other thing too, and we just talked about where they discovered a significant amount of infiltration happening in Mill Pond Park, that hopefully we can address that sooner than later, and maybe that will alleviate this part of this concern. So
The more you can do, the better it'll be, for sure.
So that metering, I want to just give you credit for putting the metering in place to help identify that kind of concern, and hopefully we can address some of it quickly.
That's Tesha all day.
All you guys work together, and I know you understand it, so I'm glad you're all working on that. When you mentioned the overall new plan and everything, and about training and all of that, do we have any concerns with increase of projected operating costs and everything? Because as we keep trying to project our new rates, we don't have an understanding exactly, everything is going up in price and everything. Do you see any changes in what we projected as being the operating costs in the new environment? Or have we assessed it?
I have not been involved with the projection, so it's very hard for me to compare to that. Obviously, you will be landfilling solids, so there will be a cost for that. I think the electrical costs were pretty similar.
It'll be close.
Yeah.
You got to remember that we're running 18 RBCs, so that's 18 different motors, and we'll only be running, maybe 1 or 2 blowers for the aeration, and a few pumps to recirculate things. It's not as, the amount of equipment probably is going to be a wash, but I'm hoping with the newer technology we'll gain some efficiencies on motors and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping, but I mean, the idea is that we do look at these projections every year, trying to figure out what our rates increase are going to be. So I didn't know who was working on those projections, so I'll give it back to Elle.
Anybody's actually working on the projections, because me and my guys, we really don't know exactly what's going to happen. I can tell you if we landfill solids, it's going to be more expensive than land applying, but I think we need that other option, because either the change in land application or the fact that we'll have so much that we could save ourselves from maybe having to land apply by running some to the landfill instead.
So what you're saying, basically right now we just can do our guesstimates as much as we can, and that's it. That's fine.
Right. Sorry.
I just wanted to let you all know that we are starting and working on a 10-year projection with Alltech. So we're using kind of their expertise, because we have people who are busy running the treatment plant, to develop a 10-year plan, so we can make sure that what we're basing our budget on and what we're planning on is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, you'd mentioned like the odor and such related to the aerators. Is that more of a concern like we had before? Is that making sure that the sludge and everything else that are in those tanks gets removed efficiently and doesn't get to stay in there or go to a certain...
With the new clarifiers with the aeration, that will be recirculated all the time, continuously, return activated sludge. So it won't have a chance to get in there and get stagnant. And when everything's aerated properly, like Brian said, it's a musty, earthy smell, it's not a stinky sewer sludge smell. So I think we'll have improvements. Plus, we changed the lid on the digester. Now it's solid. It does, that digester is designed to leak a little bit around the rim. So, that's going to go away. So hopefully we get rid of a lot of the odors. And the RBCs also, they're not exactly sealed tightly, even though we've got an odor system on them. So.
And then, as you mentioned, RBC, the last question was, so if we have, I know the problem in the past, we had like 4 down, and that was a real big problem for the ammonia and whatever. So if one goes down, you'll fix that, another one goes down, and then will we have to, you have a lead time that's pretty quick to get the new engine?
The gearboxes are pretty much on the shelf, but like I said, I just don't want to spend the money unnecessarily.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure there was like a 12-week lead time or something like that that could be consistent if all of a sudden 2 break down or something.
No, we shouldn't have that. As a matter, I'll tell you this, we went out and looked at the RBCs too, and the first, I don't know how many, 6 or whatever, they all have a zooglio film on them. That's how it gets broken down, basically.
Right.
Well, then as you get to the end, the last 2 or 3 didn't have much on them. And my guess is it's because they didn't need to. There wasn't any food. So now with this, we went back and looked, with this one down, the next one has now started to build up a zooglio film on it. So again, we're getting the same amount of treatment, I believe. So as long as another one doesn't go down, I think we'll be okay. If one goes down, we'll swap the gearbox and see what happens after that.
I just want to make sure we don't, similar to what we just did at the rec center, I want to make sure that you know that you can get these parts and spend that money. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gearbox. Councilmember Rice, 5 minutes if you'd like it.
No, I think all of my questions have been answered.
Okay, real quick then, Councilmember Harmon, any additional questions?
I do not.
Councilmember Lesh?
No, sir.
Councilmember Seal?
No, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, I believe you had a couple?
The only one that I had left was going back to odor and the odor abatement system. So are we going to reactivate that? Is all that ductwork is going to be repositioned again and hooked to the rocket ship?
It should be running right now, and it will continue to be used in the future.
Okay.
We're actually supplementing it. I think we're adding 1 or 2, I think we're adding 1 new carbon unit to the project.
Thank you.
Mr. Gearbox, you're good? Yep. Councilmember Rice?
Good.
Very good. Mr. Rubel, anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, if I may.
Please.
The document I think the acting city manager gave you is a change order pending for Kokosing. I don't believe it is on your agenda for this evening to take action on it, but since I was here tonight, we wanted to share that with you. I can come back if you have questions. I can field questions in between.
Let me defer to the acting city manager. Is your desire to have this as an enumerated action item at our next regular meeting on May the 5th?
Yes, it is.
Very good.
Do you feel comfortable, if you have any questions now, or if you want to email questions to Mr. Rubel, if we still needed to come, if you would be so gracious as to come 2 weeks in a row for us?
Next, or 2 weeks from today, excuse me, on your calendar. But we'll do a quick round of questions to see if there are any initial thoughts regarding I think there are 2 documents, are there not? Yeah, one is dated January the 29th, the other is dated March the 7th. Councilmember Harmon, any questions, comments regarding the 2 supplemental packets that were provided this evening? If not, no big deal. You can direct questions to the city manager's office anytime between now and our next regular meeting.
Yeah, I need time to review.
Fair enough. Councilmember Lesh?
Not this time.
Mr. Seal?
Not at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Not at this time.
Councilmember Gearbox?
Just one. Can you explain why DTE couldn't do the work?
DTE is a very challenging organization to work with. I don't recall the reason that they did not want to do the work, but the contractor had the forces to do it. We had an allowance in the contract that the contractor could pay Detroit Edison to do it. That will be removed from their contract at a future time. In fact, that's like $150,000.
Well, that's why I assumed this was the much cheaper alternative, so I'm glad that this happened, but I'm just concerned DTE and the response time, so.
We try to budget high for these things so that we don't have to come back and ask. So, yes, we paid the electrical subcontractor a little bit now to do it, but that will come off at a clip of $150,000 in the future. So the timing is somewhat unfortunate sometimes. You see the changes, but that'll get backed out next year at some point.
And my only follow-up on that is just making sure that they're scheduled to do the final connection so that we don't have a delay in that either.
That's a great question. They've been dragging their feet. That's in the works. We've had all sorts of dialogue on that. I think it's going to happen. They need to obtain an easement from a neighbor to get the proper line size to the plant. So we've helped them the best we could. In particular, city staff have helped them with phone calls and contact information for the neighbor and assessor records so that they can write an easement and make that happen. So
We do have a local representative that I'm sure will help out, so.
I'm sure that's right. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice?
Nothing for me.
Mr. Rubel, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. We're going to proceed to the consent agenda. I would note for council's benefit, we do have several substantive items to get through and a few important items under the discussion portion of tonight's agenda. So if you could exercise brevity, I would appreciate that, not only for staff's benefit, but also for the independent contractors and vendors who are in the audience tonight to report out on agenda items. We've come now to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda. I believe, based on an email I received earlier today, that 2 members were requesting that bills be removed. Is that correct?
Yes, just specifically for me, check 73151.
Repeat that one more time for the clerk's benefit.
Specifically, check 73151.
Very good. So, Mr. Gearbo, would you like to move to approve the consent agenda as amended, striking bills, which will become the first item under new business? And Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, would you second that motion?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Mr. Gearbo, you're good with that?
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor, moved and seconded by Gearbo and Dillon to approve the consent agenda, noting the removal of bills, which will be considered as the first enumerated action item under new business. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We come now to unfinished business. Agenda item 25-31, ordinance number 872, an ordinance to amend department head titles. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from Community Development Director Adkin and to adopt or not to adopt ordinance number 872.
Move to acknowledge and adopt.
Thank you, Councilmember Lesh. Is there a second? Seconded by CO. In the absence of Community Development Director Adkin, Acting City Manager Cole, would you care to make some obligatory statements for the record?
Absolutely. So tonight we're looking at draft of the ordinance 872, which proposes a series of clarifying amendments across the City of Saline Code of Ordinance relating to the role of city superintendent. As you may recall, the position is a formal title that was dissolved in 2019 that does not exist anymore. Since that time, the responsibilities previously held by the superintendent have been distributed amongst existing departments or reassigned under newly established roles. This ordinance serves formally to reflect the operational reality within our municipal code. Specifically, it redefines the term city superintendent throughout the ordinance to refer it to either the city engineer or other designated staff, depending on the nature of the duty referenced. If you recall, you saw this back in February 10th of this year, where afterwards we conducted a thorough cross-reference and review and updated just a few other references to the Department of Public Works and Community Development. That way we can ensure that the authority and responsibilities are clearly assigned, practically aligned with our current operations.
Very good. I believe this item has been considered and discussed at our policy subcommittee. Mr. Lesh is the chair of that body. Do you care to make any comment at this time?
We did take a look at this and vetted it through our members and brought it to council.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, as a member of that subcommittee, any comments?
No, I think that we had brought it to this body. There were some issues. It went back, and I think it hopefully meets everybody's specifications now.
Very good. Councilmember Rice, as the third member of the policy committee, any statement you'd like to make at this time?
I thank you for the additional clarifications. I think it looks good.
Very good. Are there questions, comments for city staff or members of the policy committee? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
The only question that I had was, now that we've kind of changed things to like city engineer or their authorized designee, is just understanding who is responsible for moving the chain of command to that designee. Is it the city engineer would then say, I'm taking that, you're going to pass this along? I just want to make sure that there isn't any confusion that it belongs to somebody else, like that the city manager assigns it if it's not going to a city engineer.
Yeah, so the procedures have all been clearly aligned and defined. Everyone's ready to accept the role. So going forward, we should see no problems with that. If something's coming to the city manager, or excuse me, the city engineer, and it needs to move on, then she would designate. So and communicate that to community development.
Okay, fantastic.
Any additional questions or comments before we vote? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just brought me to attention. So this information has been updated in their job descriptions too, so that will clearly be identified that way? Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Any discussion on the motion? It's been properly moved by Lesh, seconded by Seo to acknowledge and to adopt. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We come to our first item under new business, which is bills, consisting of 95 payees in an amount in excess of $6 million. This motion will be a motion to approve the bills as submitted.
Move to acknowledge.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, excuse me, we'll start with a motion to acknowledge the bills. Is there a second to that? Seconded by Gearbaugh. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon or Councilmember Gearbaugh, who would like to begin?
I can begin. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon identified a check that is being produced, which is 73151, that needs additional review and investigation by the city manager. At this point, and this was recommended by her, I'd prefer that she repeal it and actually bring it back to us and discuss what the policy or concerns are with that payment.
Okay, very good. You couldn't make any comment?
I would just ask that it be postponed to the next meeting for review.
Not the approval of bills, just striking that particular bill.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, any additional thoughts?
So just understanding, if we're striking this, that means payment is not being made?
Correct. Not at this time, of that particular bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments for the acting city manager? There's a motion on the floor moved by Dillon, seconded by Gearbaugh to simply acknowledge receipt of the bills. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the payment of bills striking? Remind me of the number.
73151.
Okay. And acknowledging that that bill will be considered at our subsequent meeting of May 5th, 2025.
Move to approve as amended.
Okay. Moved by Rice. Is there a second? Seconded by Seo. Is there any additional discussion? Appears to be none. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We move on to new business item 25-72. This is 1415 Industrial Ave property sale. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from Community Development Director Adkin and to approve or not to approve the sale of city-owned property, approximately 1.4 acres, tax parcel number 18-12-30-451-990 for $39,789.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Moved by Gearbaugh to acknowledge and to approve. Was that a second by Rice or Harmount? Harmount, okay.
I move to acknowledge, not approve.
Okay, well, I got a motion on the floor by Gearbaugh to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Seo. Again, in the absence of the Community Development Director, El Cole, or Acting City Manager Cole, excuse me, I know you've been, you and I have both been included on all of these emails and correspondence. Do you care to give a brief rundown on this issue?
Absolutely. So being proposed in front of you is a sale of 4.15 acres. That's a vacant industrial property located at the north end of our industrial park to a company called Aero Energy, which is owned by Craig Feynman. Mr. Feynman is seeking to acquire this parcel at the purchase price of $39,798, which equates to $9,590 per acre. The same per acre rate previously was approved by council for a comparable sale to American Soy on the southern end of our Outlot A. Aero Energy currently operates on a parcel directly across from the kitty corner to this parcel, and its proposed site would allow for the development of a maintenance and repair facility only. This would not be open to the public, and it would be used to support the company's existing tractor trailer fleet. Obviously, would not be open to the public, I said that, but also it would be subject to special land use approval through the Planning Commission process. The remaining 4.76 acres of the original parcel at 1415 Industrial Ave will remain under city ownership. Notably, this area is designated as private easement for the preservation of wetland area by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. In addition, the city will retain the balance of the 13.98 acres of Outlot A under tax parcel number 18123451,990. For context, we valued the parcel between 125 and 145, or roughly $15,661 per acre. While the purchaser originally offered us $25,000 for the full lot, the agreed upon terms reflect a more equitable valuation per acre and maintain consistently with our prior transactions.
Very good. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that was good. That was good.
Okay. Is the petitioner here by any chance? No. No? Okay. Very good. Are there questions, comments for the acting city manager? Councilmember Rice.
I'll just make a brief comment that Mr. Feynman's business has been a longtime supporter of activities in the city of Saline, Saline Summerfest. So it would be a shame if his company were not able to survive in the city of Saline.
Very good. Additional questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
Just a quick comment. I just wanted to thank Community Development Director Atkin. He really kind of did a lot of legwork to figure out the best use of this parcel, because it's sort of an awkwardly shaped parcel, and the purchaser really only needed a certain piece of it. So being able to carve off what was needed, the city's going to maintain the rest, I think is in the best interest of everyone. So I appreciate his diligence on that.
Very good. Yeah, I'll echo those comments. It is a very awkward parcel, and I think this is a fair and reasonable price. And to Councilmember Rice's comments, hopefully will allow an important and valued Saline business to grow. And I look forward to seeing a proposal, and I suspect Councilmember Gearbaugh does as well, before the Planning Commission in the ensuing months. Any additional comments or questions from the dais? We have a motion on the floor, then moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by CO, to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 25-73, Salt Springs Special Event Fundraiser. This will be a motion to acknowledge the memorandum from City Clerk Royal and to approve or not to approve the special event application, and to waive or not to waive the fees for this fundraising special event in the amount of $47.87.
Move to acknowledge.
Moved by Dillon, simply to acknowledge. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Gearbaugh. Clerk Royal, do you care to give some obligatory comments? Pull that microphone close.
Yes, this is a fundraiser that's being done by Salt Springs for Emerson School, and the applicant is willing to go ahead and pay the amount if it is not approved. But since it's a special event, it does need to go through council anyway, so I went ahead and asked for the waiver of fees. So it won't stop the event if the fees are not waived. But I just wanted to bring it forward to let you see it.
Yep. Thank you. Questions for the city clerk, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon? I'll jump to Councilmember Harmo.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up. I had a conversation with the acting city manager about this the other day. And I'm not objecting to it. I just want to kind of clarify a couple of things. First, the application was supposed to be in 45 days before, so we're kind of cutting it really, really close, considering it's like this weekend. What I'm trying to understand is they want the 3 spaces in front of Salt Springs Brewery to use for valet parking. What I'm concerned about is, will there be an issue with cars stacking that are waiting to get into the valet, and what's that going to look like in that area, because it's right at an intersection?
Do you actually, excuse me, either the clerk or acting city manager, do you have a response to that or any insights?
Yeah, so they plan on keeping the cars rotating, and they're going to avoid it. They're just going to be motioning to people to keep going if they're not ready to valet yet.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, have any of the other businesses that are going to be impacted that are right in that area been notified? Did they have any objections to it?
I'm not sure about the direct notification, but everyone in the downtown area is aware that they will be having this event. I haven't heard any objections or anyone have any issue with it.
Okay. I think going forward, maybe that's something that we can sort of add. I know we kind of did that with Main Street at times, making sure that all the businesses were on board for it.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yep.
I see no objection, Acting City Manager Cole, to Mayor Pro Tem Dillon's suggestion. If this motion passes tonight, I think we could work with our partners at Saline Main Street to make sure at a minimum an email blast goes out to all of their active members who participate in their monthly meetings, informing of this so that there's no confusion, and hopefully it doesn't create any inconveniences. They can plan accordingly to mitigate any potential inconveniences. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. And then just to clarify, I think they were expecting 150 people, and they've got parking already figured out on a private lot. So are they anticipating utilizing a city lot at all too for like self-parking, or are they directing all of, because what I don't want to see is our entire lot filled with cars for one event on a Friday night.
At this time, the public lot is not going to be blocked off, so if there were people coming from the event and they parked there, there'd be nothing stopping them from doing that.
Okay. I don't know whether that's something that we would need to look at in the future also, of where the public lots have signs that say no event parking, if there's, you know, if there's already other parking established for it. And I just have one other comment, which is, and I think the clerk mentioned this, is that I don't think that this quite reaches the threshold of us waiving fees. Thank you.
Fair enough. Councilmember Harmel?
Along that line, my question that I submitted was, what is the standard procedure for waiving event-related fees in Saline? Has this precedent been applied to similar events? And they're asking for a waiver for fees previously that have been denied.
Who would like to address that? I can also address it.
We did go in, and in 2022, there was the church, the Presbyterian Church asked for the street to be closed, and we did not waive those fees. And then in 2023, we had Jazz in the Park, who came to City Council, and a Hero Walk, and those both were denied. The events were approved, but the waiver of any fees were not, and they were all billed, and they all paid.
Any additional questions, Councilmember Harmel?
And there's not going to be any additional costs associated with the DPW or police department involved?
If there is, we will bill them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice?
Yeah, my heart is torn. I appreciate fundraisers, but these are not, I do not consider this a community event if it's not open to the public. Therefore, I don't consider waiving fees a valuable resource to taxpayers in the city of Saline.
And I think that's essentially has been our policy, which we are in the business of waiving fees when there is a broad, unambiguous benefit to the entire community, and the entire community can access the events and amenities.
Secondary to that, though, however, if you don't mind,
please.
I also would like to. I understand Councilmember Dillon's, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon's objection to filling up a public parking. However, they would do the same if they filled up that restaurant for, you know, this isn't, I don't know how to word this. This isn't a private entity in their own home filling up the public parking. It is still for a restaurant, which therefore the business will be, you know, bringing in and customers, bringing in service. So I don't agree with, you know, having any sort of standards for telling folks that they can't park in public parking for a business downtown.
Fair enough. Councilmember Gearbaugh?
Just to, one, what's the cost of us billing and following up and everything else? I'm like, if it's less than $100, we shouldn't even be considering it. Or something, could you can assign a cost to that? Because it's costing us more in paperwork and some of the other. The other thing, while I agree that with Councilmember Rice about the parking, the issue is going to be frequency. If we have an organization that's doing this every month and potentially affecting the other businesses, I think that's what's going to be the biggest concern for me. So I agree with both my colleagues. It just, I think it ties more to frequency and the concern, because the idea is that we want to have people downtown, and hopefully these events will encourage more businesses to use those facilities. So.
And I do believe that's why they tried to find private parking, so that they would.
Yeah, I give them kudos for going for all the Klingenberger's property and all of that to park, so that's appreciated.
So they're going to use that first, and then city last, so.
Excellent.
Mr. Shield, before we vote on the motion to acknowledge receipt?
It just struck me that it was going to be a long uphill from those two private parking areas to.
That's why they're doing the valet. They'll have young people.
They'll be young and active.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. We have a motion on the floor, moved by Gearboss, seconded, no, excuse me. I'm on to this, I was looking at the previous motion. We're on motion 2573. So this is a motion moved by Dillon, seconded by Gearboss, simply to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from the city clerk. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion now to approve or not to approve the special event and to waive or not to waive the fees associated?
I move to approve and not waive.
Been moved by CO to approve and to not waive. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Oh, boy. I think I heard Dillon first, so my apologies to the rest of you. Try to get you on subsequent motions. Is there any additional discussion? Then all those in favor of approving and not waiving, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 25-74, Communications Strategic Partner. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt and to approve or not to approve the agreement with Metric Marketing for a not to exceed amount of $145,200 and to authorize the acting city manager to execute the agreement and any related documents.
Move to acknowledge and to authorize.
It's actually to approve, Mr. CO. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Yep. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rice. Acting City Manager Cole, can you provide some obligatory remarks, and particularly for the public's benefit, can you, I know Ms. McNaughton from Metric Marketing provided an excellent presentation 2 weeks ago, but I think it's worth reiterating the timeframe and scope of this agreement and all of the services and amenities that will be looked at and provided for the dollar amount, because I think at first glance it would seem rather high to a number of residents and community stakeholders.
Absolutely wonderful, my pleasure. So tonight, I'm excited actually to bring forward for consideration the contract with Metric Marketing to provide a comprehensive strategic communication service for our city. This recommendation comes after thoughtful review of our current communication landscape, an environment that has in recent years presented increasing challenges for transparency, consistency, and public engagement. As many of you are aware, Saline has historically relied on a patchwork of communication tools and several messaging efforts. We've seen a growing dependence on unofficial information sources, inconsistent branding across departments, and lack of analytics to measure outreach and outdated internal systems that hinder collaboration. These issues are not cosmetic, they are foundational, and they directly impact public trust, staff efficiency, and our ability to tell the city's story effectively. That is why it is an important goal of our strategic plan to foster open communication. In response, staff issued a targeted request for proposals after the working group met several times over many months. 3 bids were received. 2 of those, one priced at $50,000 and another priced at $100,000, were incomplete, failing to meet the full scope and deliverables outlined by our internal working group in the bid. Metric Marketing submitted a comprehensive, technically responsive proposal tailored specifically to Saline's short and long-term goals. The contract includes community survey and communications audit, and this is where we're going to identify where we're falling short, where we can grow. A modernized branding package that includes updated colors, fonts, tone, and designed to reflect our values and improve visibility across platforms, and making sure that it's the same across all platforms. Develop and use to the full extent our current internal communication platforms, enhancements to our external engagement tools, our website, newsletters, social media, to make them more responsive and citizen-focused. Automated reporting dashboards to provide staff and council with real-time analytics, improving transparency and accountability. Templates for best practices for staff, boards, commissions, and volunteers to ensure clarity and cohesion in all city communications. Most importantly, robust training and documentation so our internal team can take ownership over time, reducing the long-term consultant dependency. There are 3 phases that will span over 10 months. The first phase will be about 100 hours for the first 8 months, and then the second phase will be about 20 hours. The total not to exceed amount with built-in flexibility based on performance. So if we're learning get the hang of this communication strategy and the tools pretty quickly, the amount could actually be less. As briefly discussed, the anticipated ROI will be measured through avoided communication missteps, improved resident engagement, cost avoidance and redundant tools, increased operational efficiency, particularly in areas like crisis communication, community surveys, and coordinated messaging. We do recognize that this is a strategic investment, but it's also a necessary one. This contract moves us out of the reactive communication state and into a proactive, unified, data-informed model that builds trust, supports staff, and strengthens civic pride. I'm happy to answer any questions and walk through any of the deliverables or bases if you'd like.
Very good. I do want to reiterate that a more cohesive and strategic communication plan is an enumerated priority in our city's strategic plan, and that, as the acting city manager indicated, this is an issue that has been evaluated, scrutinized, and discussed over the better part of probably 4 or 5 months now by a working committee that consists of the acting city manager, council members CO, Rice, our PR generalist, Sarah Massey, Danica Katnick in the community development department, and then formerly Chastity Gray, one of our assistant treasurers. So we appreciate everyone's work. Before we open it up for questions or comments, I would defer to the 2 council members who are part of the working committee. Let me begin to my left with Councilmember Rice. Is there anything you'd like to say in regards to agenda item 25-74?
I think the acting city manager covered the majority of it from a communications professional perspective. Really like to hit home that the current PR generalists and others who do communications, like you mentioned, our community development staff members, things like that, will really benefit from having this team kind of come in and take a look at how we operate, look at best practices, what's out there that we haven't been using, hear back from the community on the ways in which they receive information, and kind of get that whole feedback loop going. From conversations that I've been privy to and been a part of during this communications working group, all city staff are really excited about this, really on board, really looking forward to finding unique opportunities to make their jobs more efficient and learn and grow. So this, in my perspective, this is not just a consultant sort of coming in, overhauling everything, wiping their hands clean and walking away. This is a group that's going to continue to work hand in hand, and there's training and growth opportunities within the city, and everyone's really excited to kind of jump on board. So yes, the price tag is seemingly high, but if you break this down, I think I mentioned this in our last meeting, if you break this down to training, implementation, having recommendations, having standard operating procedures, in a 12-month time span or a 10-month time span, price per product that they're going to leave us with, I think is, you can't even ask for a better a price than what they've given us. Happy to answer any additional questions from that perspective from my colleagues, but I would really hope that you would kind of take the recommendation from some experts from the staff who are really, they've been asking for this and they've been eager for this, and see, how we can move forward with this this group that's going to help us.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Rice. Councilmember CO, any additional comments?
Yes, Your Honor, 2 things. First of all, I'm continually baffled by the fact that we live in an information age, and yet it's so difficult to effectively give information to the public from where we sit. So I'm excited to see this take place. Secondly, I'm excited that it's a local company that will help us through this, and it not only benefits the city, but I think it benefits the community as well. So thank you, Your Honor.
Very good. Are there questions for either the acting city manager or members of our working group? Councilmember Gearbaugh.
Just a couple. Some of the things I noticed in there was talking about doing surveys and such. So is the survey going to be about expectations and things that they want from the city, or on communications, or broader?
The survey is going to be on all things communication. And certainly the communications working group is still going to need to convene to discuss what types of surveys, as they present to us, are different options.
Okay. For me, one of the things with this contract, knowing the price tag and everything, is to make sure that council is kept up to date on it. So what type of milestones, how frequently will we be receiving information related to, and I'm looking at my thing here, both phases and to the way it's identified in monthly timelines? How will that be communicated to us? And
hopefully you'll be able to see some of the changes right away as we start to send out some of the surveys. But as we get that information back, we certainly can return quarterly to kind of give you an update on how the project's going, the status of it, and I'm sure that you'll be hearing from us throughout as we get different items updated.
For me, one of the things is making sure as we're going down a direction, it's going down the direction the entire council supports, just so that we have that kind of understanding and input to it. The other one, of course, it doesn't talk about a full revamp of our entire website and such, but I have significant concerns with how it is currently set up, the reporting tool, and a number of other issues. So it'd be helpful for us to actually receive back some kind of information of how that's going to be achieved long before it gets to 8 or 10 months down the road. And then the last thing, as you know, and we had discussed about it previously, I want to make sure that the non-discrimination ordinance is referred to in any contract or document that's addressed. I'm a little concerned when I read something that, one line that says this is about liberals against conservative non-residents, and that has a tendency for me to set off a whole thing. We're trying not to be that kind of a situation, and that's the worst thing that's happening right now in our town and even in the nation. So whatever we can do to make sure that we adhere to our values in this community needs to be emphasized.
Thank you. Councilmember Lesh, and then I'll jump to Councilmember Harmont.
As the chair of the policy subcommittee, we actually just had a new policy brought to us which deals explicitly with internal communications among city employees and elected officials. So I believe having this company facilitate discussions on best platforms and things would be quite a boon at this particular point in time.
Okay. Councilmember Harmont?
I really support a comprehensive communication plan for the city. I do want to make, with that being said, I want to make the comment that $145,200 is pretty significant. And I'm not on, and I do also want to make the statement that I'm not on the subcommittee, so I don't know all of the information that's been shared. I did ask for a comprehensive return on investment and measurable KPI. And I'm not really convinced that I'm seeing what I'm looking for that. So I'm going to have to defer that the subcommittees ask all these questions, and we will have measurable KPI. And they've identified areas specifically right now that we are have gaps in our communication. Specifically, I'd like to understand what the measurables are.
Do you want to respond to that? I mean, some of that data will come subsequent, to, assuming the motion passes. But if you want to provide any clarity to Councilmember Harmont's questions, we would appreciate that.
So right now, one of the biggest benefits to going forward with the communication strategy is having the automated reporting tools that will be a dashboard that you'll be able to see all of the questions that you have about social media, about our email policy, how many people are visiting our website. Those are all customizable. So for me to sit here and say we're going to have this KPI and that, they're all customizable KPIs. So as we go through and we look at our reporting, they will give us options and give us recommendations, and we will bring those to City Council for your review, because we want your input to see if that's what you want to use to judge to see if we're doing our communications effectively.
Good. Anything further, Councilmember Harmont?
I just have some more specific questions with regards to that, so I guess I'm gonna have to look at that.
Okay. Let me get questions and comments from at least everyone first, Councilmember Rice, before I jump back to you. I don't believe Mayor Pro Tem Dillon has an opportunity to share some remarks or ask questions.
Thank you. Can you just clarify what was a targeted request? So this was not a full RFP?
No, this was a full RFP, but when I say targeted, it was targeted towards communication strategy.
Okay, so we did not target vendors. It was open, it was a full-on.
Yes.
Thank you. So one of the things that I do have a concern about, and I think Mr. Gearbaugh may have mentioned this too, was that we don't really have anything to balance this proposal against. We received 2 other bids. We were told they were incomplete. So kind of understanding where did those fall short as to should it have been considered a failed search, and should we have gone back out or something like that? Because it's really difficult to balance this dollar amount when there's nothing in comparison to it.
We're hoping that with the different bids that we did receive, while they were not filling the whole scope, they did give us a general idea of the cost of those services. So with all of the items included and extrapolating what was missing from the scope, about $150,000 seemed reasonable compared to what the other firms were charging us, because it was literally 75% and then half of what the other scope was. I would be happy to sit down and review those documents with you so you can see I have a document that takes all of the scopes and lines them to the bid documents that were returned.
Okay. I just think, and I think this kind of may go back to Councilmember Harmont's question, is that I think things are getting a little bit muddied in that subcommittees are doing things, and I understand that, but I don't feel like all of the information comes back to this place, to this body. And so I want to make sure that we're all making the best decisions we can. And then, like, when I started kind of doing the quick math, I think we're asking for in a not to exceed of 145, 200, but their numbers are like 137. So I'm not sure why we're building in a buffer at this point.
I think there was about a 10% contingency built in just in case there was overage, which is standard, but we can remove that.
And so it just leaves an opportunity. I would rather come back and discuss it than have an overage which gets absorbed in. And then my biggest concern right now about this beyond dollars is it's great. We've got professionals that are going to come in and figure things out. I don't think we have adequate staffing to receive that at this point. Right now, your information is only as good as the information that you're putting out. We have an outdated website. We have an outdated reporting tool, things like that. So until we're willing to implement the time and the staff hours into that on our end, I don't know what we're going to do with this information that they give us.
We have a staff plan moving forward. Recently, PR Generalist Massey was moved underneath our IT Director, Chris Schonk. And that is to help facilitate and align the communications time so that we have more time in our schedule to tend to training, learning the social media, all the different tools and techniques they're going to be teaching her. We're also going to be looking at hiring a second person, that half of that person's time would be dedicated to IT as well.
Okay. It would be easier if we sort of understood this in big picture to understand that aspect of it, because again, I don't want them to create content or things that we're not able to implement on our side. So I don't know that a part-time person is going to be able to take on the role of a full-time, communications person at this point.
Many of the steps and processes that PR Generalist Massey follows right now will be replaced with new processes. So while it's going to be a little bit extra time during the training season, at the end of it, hopefully her job will be even more effective and efficient. We can get more done with the time that she has.
Okay. I guess then I would like to see shorter periods to see the milestones, to understand that we're actually being able to it, because I don't see putting dollars forward perpetually if we're unable to keep up with the flow of work.
Makes sense.
Councilman Rice, did you still want to make a comment? Then I have a few, but I would defer to you first.
Yeah, I just want to recognize that when you talk about, communications consulting, it's sort of abstract, right? We don't have we're going to order this piece of equipment and then we're going to install this piece of equipment and then we're going to turn this piece of equipment on like we have for the wastewater treatment plant. One of the biggest first things that they're going to need to come in here and do is talk to everybody. This is a bid and this is an idea, and they're and having communications with them, what they understand, what we need aligns with their skill set and their expertise. So, you know, they're going to come in here and have these conversations with the PR generalist and with the IT director and say, you know, what do you feel is the holdup on your website? What do you feel is the holdup with communications with the community? And then they're going to look at it and they're going to go, well, here's what we see with the holdup, and here's what we see, and like, how can we use the systems that you have, or maybe implement new things to make things better? They're not going to, you know, come in here and create more work. The whole point is the efficiencies of things. Taking a look at everything that we have, kind of like what we talked about in our policy meeting today. So take a look at what we have and say, okay, you know, this is kind of an outdated practice. I know the city of Saline's been doing it for the last, you know, 10, 15 years. Here's a better practice, and usually that creates an efficiency. So we're looking at a proposal, and we're looking at something that was developed after conversations. So when these proposals came back and we looked at a couple of them, they were missing a lot of things. So we had additional conversations with Metric because theirs included a lot of things. And then we scaled back some of what they included because, well, we're like, you know, this isn't really what we're looking to do in the city. So we had some really in-depth conversations, which is why this process has taken months. So again, I think when they come in and we kind of narrow some of these things down and we set some goals, those are the types of things we'll be able to report out to council and say, do these goals match kind of what we know the community needs and what council wants? But again, like I said, it's more abstract, right? They've broken this out in the timelines because they know how long it takes to do these things, but they're not like, you know, by June the 1st we'll have a new website up, because that might not be what we actually need. We might just need to clean up the website. They might look at the tools that are on the website and go, you guys aren't using these tools correctly, and show us how to correctly use them. So there's a lot of, like, you know, nuance to communications planning and to producing products, and the same goes for the return on investment and the KPI. They don't know that until they start talking to us, and so they start talking to staff and say, okay, what's the thing that you know that you need? All right, here's what the return on the effort for that will be. Or maybe that's not, you guys are spending too much time and you're not getting a return on the effort for this. So I think there's still a lot of information to come, but I felt really confident when talking to these folks that, like, they understood all of that and they were ready to dive in and help everybody with that.
Very good. Well, much like my colleagues, if this motion is adopted later this evening, I would be very keen to see benchmarks and appropriate updates when applicable, either provided via a weekly communique, your weekly communique. They can be articulated at council meetings by any member of the working group or staff. And if we feel it's incumbent to invite the vendor, Metric Marketing, to attend meetings to provide periodic updates, I think that would be beneficial. I do want to say I don't agree that the website is in its totality outdated. I think it does need tweaks and adjustments, and certainly improvements can and should be made. But in its totality, I think it's a pretty good product. Although I will note that from my conversations with our PR generalist and our IT director, it appears based on the numbers that more and more people are gravitating to our social media platforms or other platforms to access information and data from the city of Saline. The only other thing I would add, and of course there is a motion on the floor, there could be an amendment, maybe not, but much like Mayor Pro Tem Dillon and I think Councilmember Harmount and maybe some others, at first blush that dollar amount seemed a little bit high to me. I guess in a perfect world I would be more amenable to seeing what I believe is a $130,000 roughly dollar figure articulated in the motion. That said, I do defer to the judgment of our working group and believe that with the current staff we have in place that this contract can be appropriately managed, and when all is said and done at the conclusion of the 10-month period we can come in under the 145.2 which is articulated in the motion. Yeah. Any additional discussion? Mr. Gearbaum.
Just a couple, and I mean, it's kind of following up with us. Have we determined what's going to be an ongoing annual expenditure just for communications? And I'm looking at staff, which we just talked about, position, whatever, social media, access to all those type of things, any additional software. Is there going to be a separate budget for that, or is it all going to be buried underneath?
We have our own budget for those items that we've already planned and built for the next year. I would assume that after we kind of go through these things, if they feel that we budgeted inappropriately, they will direct us. If there's anything that would cost more money than the items that we've already budgeted for, we will be coming to council for those.
For me, I guess that's the part I want to, when we implement this is my concern I mentioned the last time was that we do very badly at implementation. I will admit that we do that. So I want to make sure that we've got the budget identified, how that's going to go forward, because this seems to be a one-time hit against our fund balance. And moving forward, you've identified a position, there's a number of ways that we're going to have to be doing this. I just want to be sure that, as we look at recurring costs and things and adding staffing, that the expectation of what we want to have meets what they are proposing. For me, the biggest thing has been, and it isn't necessarily the type of website we have, but it definitely is the ability to maintain that website and keep it up to date. We did a poor conversion when we converted it to the current website. It still has issues related to that. I've tried to identify a number of things, but there's still a lot of outdated and that type of thing. So how that occurs and who's responsible in managing it, I know this is repeating again, but that's the piece, because I can tell you 15 years ago, we spent $90,000 doing the exact same thing, and that whole thing failed. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't occur again.
Any additional discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
So just for clarification, this, it states that, and Mr. Gearbaugh just mentioned this a little bit, that it's a reallocation of funds. Where are these funds coming from?
So we will be using the funds from the general fund balance, or we can reallocate them from many different areas. We did have this budgeted, so it was taken from general fund last year, planned use.
Okay. Because I don't know, for me, I look at fund balance as a necessity. This is a want. At this point, when we know we've got other things we're taking, and we're going to come down a little bit further, and we've got our fire bill that is going to take a big hit to the general fund this year. We've got other projects that we know we're going to have overruns. And so I do not want to see this being allocated out of fund balance. I don't think that's what those funds should be utilized for.
Any additional discussion on the motion? Councilmember Rice.
Just again, as a communications professional, this is the thing that people want to spend the least amount of money on, and in my personal opinion, I'm biased about communications. This is the thing that most communities, most governments fail on the most. So I am all for a little bit of investment to try to get us set for the future. To Mr. Gearbaugh's comment, I hear what you're saying. I think what this is going to do, though, is going to get rid of some of those not only deficiencies that we have, but create efficiencies. And they're going to leave us with some, standard operating procedures, white papers, so that should staff move on, we will be able to fill that position by saying, here's how the city operates, here's how the communications tools we use. Can you use them? Yes or no? We're going to kind of set it up that way. So I think in the past, it's just kind of been like pulling out whatever the latest, hottest thing is. This kind of puts it together, and then you go forward as a city and you say, this is how the city communicates. And then as things change, we adapt to the technologies as AI grows, that we're going to be looking at that next year, I'm sure. But I think this puts it in a nice package so that, we'll be able to hand it to someone else. It's less about needing more people and more about just having it ready in front of us.
Any additional discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the funding source. So just so I can understand, if right now you're saying it's scheduled to come out of fund balance.
Right now, it is scheduled to come out of fund balance. If that's an issue, we certainly can work out a different way.
And then the economic impact amount, I'm trying to understand, and I absolutely respect what Councilmember Rice is saying, and I do understand the importance of it. I want to make sure that we are leaving room on the backside for implementation. And so I would feel more comfortable if it were, if we had a lower not to exceed so that we can figure out on the backside how to implement.
If you want to offer that as amendment, the body can certainly consider it if appropriately worded.
And so, I mean, not understanding exactly, you know, where it could be trimmed, I mean, is this something that has the potential where we can put a $100,000 cap on it instead of the 137? Is there something like that where then we could always come back to it and say, hey, we need to amend this because we've gotten to this path and now we need more money to finish the process?
For the items that we included in the scope, so if we want to start to look at the scope and dismantling that, that was the price that they quoted for them to come in. It also does include implementation. So they're coming in, they're training, they're helping us implement these SOPs, they're giving them to us. Their goal is to make us plug and play. Their goal is also to be a partner to us so that even after they're done and have concluded their work, that they're still a trusted advisor of ours. I have faith that they're going to lead us in the right direction, and I know that you're asking for a plan and a strategy, but that's what we're paying them to help us create. So I would be more than happy, delighted actually, to come in at various steps along the way for us to present kind of our plan, how we're going to move forward, and then talk about how often we're going to come revisit council.
Thank you.
Yep. One last comment. Are there any amendments?
The idea is the scope. Where it really runs into a problem is when you start changing that scope. And so then the hours start to add up, then the ideas start running off. And so if this is the scope and we stick to it, I'm approving this to move forward. But as long as we receive those updates so that we know 6 months from now whether or not we're achieving anything, we can then reevaluate the whole contract as itself. So thank you.
You can count on me for that.
Any additional discussion or any amendments that want to be offered from the floor? Hearing now, we have a motion. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yep, it's all you.
So I will move to, let's see, so I've got to figure out how to do this. So the motion would be to approve the agreement with Metric Marketing in a not to exceed amount of, I think it was 137. 137,550, which was the amount that they had. And then utilizing funds from general funds, not fund balance. As you said, we have a line item that's currently in the budget.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So,
understanding,
yep,
yes.
I want to defer to the city clerk. So are you clear on the amendment that Mayor Pro Tem Dillon is going to offer from the floor? So her amendment would be to change the not to exceed amount to a base price of $137,550, designating that those dollars would come directly from the general fund, not from the fund balance.
Correct.
Okay, that's your motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Rice, okay? Everyone clear on the amendment? We're going to vote on the amendment first and then the motion in its totality. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Do you need any clarification? You're going to try and take it out of existing budget lines and reallocate, correct?
I already have it in existing budget lines in.
For the new fiscal year?
Yes.
But in this current fiscal year?
In this upcoming, we'll move it, whatever's left over from this year, we'll move to next year and carry that forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional comments, discussion on the amendment? Mr. Seal.
Yes, would there be sacrifice to current programs then, if we take it out of fund balance, or general fund?
I'm sorry, could you
Will there be
repeat?
a sacrifice to existing or to planned programs?
No, it's already a planned use.
Okay.
I have a question.
Please,
So-
Councilmember Harmer.
So what is the catch-all if they're not performing or we're not being able to provide any sort of benefit or they're not able to document to us that there has been a benefit?
So we have a 30-day notice clause where we will mention the deficiencies to give them time. They have 30 days to correct them, and if they don't correct the deficiencies, then at that point in time, we can be released from the contract.
We've already paid, like there's a huge upfront payment, so would we get that amount back? I'm not understanding that.
I would imagine the amount that progressed, so it would be probably prorated for the amount of work that they've done to that point in time.
I believe we discussed with them too that we can back out of the contract if need be, correct?
They kind of gave us the handshake deal of we could back out of it if we needed to.
Yeah.
Is there any additional discussion on the amendment offered by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon? Everyone clear on the amendment? Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment, which changes the dollar amount. It reduces it to $137.55 and designates that the dollars will be taken out of the general fund and not the fund balance. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. The motion carries 6-1. All right, now we're going to consider the full motion, which now includes the amended dollar amount and designates that the funds will come out of the general fund. Are there any additional comments pertaining to that motion? All right, then the motion is amended by Dillon, but it was initially moved by CO and Rice to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it again, and the motion carries 6-1. Thank you very much. We move on to a pretty perfunctory agenda item this evening, which is 2551, Fire Special Assessment Resolution Number 2, setting public hearing. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from Treasurer Finch and to adopt or not to adopt Resolution Number 2551-2, setting the public hearing date for May 19, 2025 for the purpose of a special assessment levy in the amount of $607,280, which does not exceed $1 million.
Move to acknowledge and adopt.
Okay, I'll get you on the next one, Councilmember Harmon. I heard Mr. CO first. Again, this is a pretty perfunctory thing. Do you care to make any comment this evening?
This is a routine but essential step in our annual budget process, so supporting core fire protection services, and this allows us to set that public hearing.
Very good. Are there any questions about the process here? Councilmember Gearbaugh?
Can you remind us how short this is from what our current fire budget is?
We are, I don't know the exact number off the top of my
Approximate.
head, but it's about $230,000.
Okay, thank you.
That has to come out of the general fund to support our fire department obligation. Very good. Please.
It also allows the letters to go out to residents, so they will get noticed of
Yep.
upcoming, so.
Very good. Very good. Any additional questions? No? Any discussion on the motion? It's been properly moved by Lesh, seconded by CO to acknowledge to adopt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 25-75, as needed engineering and DPW assistance. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from Engineer Humphreys and to approve or not to adopt the contract with OHM for an as needed engineering and DPW assistance proposal in an amount not to exceed $55,200.
Move to acknowledge and to approve.
Moved by Gearbaugh to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Lesh. This is pretty straightforward. Thank you for your patience tonight, Engineer Humphreys, and we appreciate the patience of our guests from OHM. Thank you for being with us. Do you care to give some brief comments for the public record?
Yes, thank you, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you to OHM, both Marcus McNamara and Caitlin Driscoll, who is here tonight. Those who don't recognize Caitlin, she's been helping out with the city before I even started here. I actually recognized her when I started because of some of her on-site inspection work she was doing on mills in 2020. So this is basically additional help for engineering while we try to replace some staff that's lost. And Caitlin is here. And again, thank her for coming and waiting for this during this long meeting tonight. And look forward to working with her. I think she's going to step right back in. She hasn't worked with Celine for a couple of years now, but I think she's going to step right back in and get up to speed very quickly.
Great. Do our guests care to make any comment this evening? It's not a requirement, but because we appreciate your patience of sitting through 2 hours and 20 minutes thus far, I'd like to provide you that privilege if you'd like it. Good.
I look forward to working with the city of Saline again.
Great, thank you. I've enjoyed working with you in the past. I'm sure you'll produce quality work as you did in the past. We look forward to working with you in the future, excuse me. Is there any questions for either our guests or for our city engineer? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
Thank you. Just very quickly, so that at this point, then, we are going to put the deputy position on hold for 6 months? Or are you going to start a search, and would it... I guess I'm just trying to understand what your timeframe process is.
Yeah, I would prefer to get the listed and looking for additional help. But right now, this is basically a stopgap, something to immediately hit the ground running while we figure out what we're doing.
Okay, so then as soon as we were to bring somebody on, then this service would discontinue.
And that's why we have a 6 months. I've allocated the funds between the major things. So engineering's time is split between general fund for storm, dam type stuff, the road funds, water fund, and sewer fund. So the allocation of the general fund numbers you see in the memo are just following our existing. We do have an as-needed annual service agreement with OHM for $20,000. So I'm just following an existing PO. We've already set up as-needed engineering or professional services in each general ledger line item.
Okay. I was just trying to understand, because some of them talk about administrative tasks. And, I mean, so are they providing engineering, consulting, oversight, admin?
A little of all. It's definitely a technical position. Right now, the engineering department in general oversees, well, I think I wrote this in the memo, but capital improvement planning, capital improvement implementation, new development review, engineering standard updates. The nice thing with OHM is they have already a deep team that is providing us with assistance on a lot of those areas. So in general, yes, this is a technical position, and that's why I'm excited for Caitlin comes with that great amount of experience. She can hit the ground like absolutely running with, and in the municipal side too, which is important. It's different, there's different types of engineering, obviously, and she comes with municipal experience.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Any additional questions from the dais? Any discussion on the motion? Let me refer back to the previous page. Thank you, Tesha. Hang tight, though, because I think you're up again for the subsequent agenda item. It's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Lesh, to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 25-76, 2024-2025 Local Road Resurfacing Program Change Order Number 4. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from City Engineer Humphreys and to authorize not authorize staff to approve the change order in a not-to-exceed amount of $190,000 to add milling and resurfacing of woodland just north of Industrial and to relocate a water main valve outside the influence of the road at Industrial and Woodland.
Move to acknowledge.
Moved by Gearboss, simply to acknowledge. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. Engineer Humphreys, a few comments for the record.
Sure. So this is in follow-up to our local road resurfacing program that we started last year in follow-up to our transportation asset management plan that we adopted in 2024. So part of the local road resurfacing program included redoing the portion of Woodland that is north of Industrial. As part of our major road, our federal fund money, we're getting money for Woodland and Industrial. That project was bid out in January. We got great bids, left some money on the table, allowed us to reshift our overall road goals. Another good thing that happened when it got bid out is Cadillac won it. Cadillac is also doing our local road project. So there are very strict guidelines when you're doing a federal project on where the lines can be. So we had two different contractors trying to do what we're trying to do, proposing to do would be a little more difficult, but we luckily have Cadillac working on both projects. So we're trying to get ahead of and tackle repaving of Woodland to basically mill it, to change the proposed surface treatment of the Woodland portion of it, and even more importantly, getting ahead of the industrial water main lining this season so that we don't disturb the road, the portion that's in the road. So industrial main water main lining is something that's been on our capital plan for 3 years now. We have scheduled it for fall of 26. To complete that water main lining, ideally we would go all the way to the water main that's underneath Woodland and Industrial. So we're proposing basically to move about $40,000 worth of funds that we had budgeted in 26 back to 25 just to cover the water main portions of that. So the change order is to basically redo the surface treatment on Woodland Drive, which is a local road, up to where we finished in 2020, and to do this water main work.
Very good.
And I guess the other thought I have, just on construction season, we're gearing up. We're proposing to get going here in May. We have a lot of work starting. Not only is this part of the road, but all that map that was included in the packet, we will be in Torwood, we will be in Wildwood, we will be in Arboretum, we will be on Saline River Drive. We have message boards up on the two larger subs, Torwood and Wildwood. The other smaller subs, Saline River Drive and Arboretum, will get door knockers. But we would expect to see a lot of construction barrels and stuff starting. And one of the other key elements of the Woodland Industrial area is, well, one, the school buses are now over there. So we're starting the actual road work when school's out. But two, American Soy. They have a lot of, one, they're a large water user. So for this temporary water service, coordinating with them and during their shutdown is important. And two, they have a lot of trucks coming and going. So they have a shutdown scheduled in early June. That's one of the reasons why actually we're shifting this whole season up over here in this area. So we're going to get all of the work done that we can before school is out, with just closing like shoulders and such, curb work and that type of work. The water main work will require just a lane closure, not complete closure, before we want to hit the ground running in early June with the pavement closure, so to coincide with American Soy's shutdown. So I guess just the construction season is starting, and we expect to hit the ground running here in just a couple weeks.
That's great. Questions for the engineer? I'll start with Mr. Gearbaugh and then jump to Councilmember Harmon.
Just a funding question. Why aren't we funding a majority of this out of LDFA instead of taking out of local road funds?
We can look at the planned uses, but when we budgeted for it, this is the amount that was budgeted for the project.
Because I would like to see that LDFA hit as hard as can be, because that's where the benefit to that whole road is to that development, or that industrial park. So whatever we can do, and especially when we have to take money out of next year's budget for this project. So if we can, thanks.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Harmon?
Just for clarification, was also one of the byproducts of this, we were originally going to microservice this, and then now we're going to be milling it, so it's going to have longer durability?
Yes, that's a couple of reasons. One, it had a rougher winter than some of our other, that particular area. That is what we did north of there, that is what we're doing south of there. It'll line everything up with kind of the same pavement life cycle, but it is a bit more expensive, what you see in the change order docs. But you get that back in years gained, yes.
Additional questions? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Thank you. Just a quick comment, Engineer Humphries. I just want to say thank you. I know we talked about the electronic billboard signs at entrances. I mean, it's huge. You can see them as you're driving by. I think it's a great way to notify people. You know, kind of going back to a previous action item about communication. Sometimes, you know, we talk about door knockers. A lot of people don't use their front doors because they go through the garage. And so I think it's a really effective thing, and I really appreciate that you took an idea and you kind of ran with it. And so thank you very much for that.
Any additional discussion or questions?
No.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon, simply to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion not authorized or not authorized? Moved by CO to authorize. Is there a second? Seconded by Harmon, is that correct? Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Any additional discussion? There's none. All those in favor of authorizing say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, Engineer Humphries. We move on to agenda item 25-78, contract with WCA for assessing services. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from Acting City Manager Cullen to approve or not to approve a 3-year contract with WCA Assessing for assessing services.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Moved by Dillon to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by CO. City Manager Cole, would you care to make some statements for the record? And I know at least one of the vendors' representatives is here tonight. I want to welcome you and thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you very much. I come to you tonight because, as you all know, we recently lost our former assessor, Jacob Sutton. He moved away for family reasons. And we're left in a spot where we really need assessing services. Our records are maintained impeccably. They are as close to without error as they possibly can be, and we want to keep them that way because it took years for us to scrub them, get them clean, get them perfect, get things grouped the proper way. When Jacob gave his notice, I was very aware of the current climate for hiring assessors. It is dim and dreary. It's almost impossible to hire an assessor right now. So given that, I started to think back about different experiences I've had throughout my career. I have previously worked with WCA, and then I started speaking with other colleagues that work here, and actually 3 of our department heads additionally have worked with WCA and have had great experiences in the past. So while they will not be here for the full 5 days that our city assessor was, they will be here long enough to keep those records elite, pristine, and perfect, and are certainly amenable to making appointments with residents if there's someone that needs to come in on a day they're not normally in addition to all the wonderful media technology advancements that we have, like Teams for meetings and a simple phone call too.
Very good. Well, first let me acknowledge for the record that we will definitely feel the loss of Assessor Sutton. He was is a phenomenal public servant. We wish him well in his new community, and he provided really quality service to our residents, and I got rave reviews about his performance by the members of our board of review, who thought he was excellent, accessible, engaged, and conveyed his knowledge with ease to citizens and business owners. One quick question for you. Acting City Manager Cullen, this is primarily for the public's benefit. When you and I first broached this subject, it was with the understanding that the future permanent city manager, along with staff and council, could determine what's best for the city in the ensuing years, which may include contracting for services or attempting to find somebody and bring them in-house. This is a 3-year contract. Can you speak to how we could potentially get out of the contract if that was deemed appropriate?
It is a 3-year contract. In reviewing the prices for the 1 and the 2 year, the 3 was by far the most reasonable and actually put us in a spot where we were eliciting savings from the transition. At that point in time, I would imagine that within the next 6 months that the environment for hiring assessors is not going to change.
Right.
I would imagine it would be several years before we get a lot of them out into the workforce. So for the need, they certainly could be able to make a change to a different assessing firm, although there are, this is by far the most reputable and reliable. So it's just a 3-year contract, and if we wanted to do less than 3 years, we would have to do a year contract, but we'd have to come back with a bit higher price.
Very good. Appreciate that. Additional questions for the acting city manager, or would our guest care to make any remarks? Again, you've been so patient this evening. You're 2.5 hours in.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Just a quick opportunity to introduce myself to yourself and the rest of the city council members. My name is Aaron Powers. I'm one of the partners and the managing director at WCA. With me this evening, I have Dan Curry. Dan is allocated to be your certifying assessor of record here. WCA has been in business since 1982. Currently, we're servicing in excess of 40 different jurisdictions all throughout the state. All of our information is publicly available on our website, as well as the information we've provided to you. Certainly happy to answer any of the questions in order of brevity, so I won't give you a whole long sales spiel about myself or the company, but we're happy to answer any concerns and questions that you might have.
Very good. And I had the pleasure of meeting Dan, I believe, last week, and I think he's already met with all the key staff members. So assuming this motion passes this evening, he'll be able to hit the ground running. I think he's been thoroughly debriefed on the issues and challenges that we face here in Saline. Very good. Are there questions for staff or our guests? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just real quick, what other municipalities in Washtenaw County do you handle at this current time?
Ann Arbor Township, City of Chelsea, City of Milan.
That's helpful. Those 3 are good. Thank you. Those are competitors, so thank you.
Probably others.
Additional questions? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
So just for clarification in the contract, so we are paying an annual fee, so there's fixed, it's not an hourly position. It breaks it out into hours, but so is there like a minimum number of hours, like will the assessor have office hours here regularly so that people will not feel as though it's not accessible to them?
They will be here minimally 2 full days a week, with that ebbing and flowing depending on the workload.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Harmon, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, so it looks like there is a net savings, as you mentioned, for going outsourcing versus in-house. If there are any sort of issues with control or responsiveness from WCA assessing, how would we address that if we're in a 3-year contract? You said that there's a provision.
There is a provision within the contract that states that if we are not satisfied, that we are to notify them in writing. They have 30 days to correct it, and if not, the contract is immediately broken.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Gearbaugh.
This is difficult, and I know we've worked many years trying to get an effective and successful assessor to continue, and I mean, Jacob's work is appreciated, and I think working with a company that, as your nature, is the best opportunity for us, even though we may have less days of service. The idea is to keep the records as accurate as we can so we don't have another problem or concern like we've had in the past. So thank you for this option.
Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate your patience tonight. Have a wonderful evening. What's left of it. Is there any additional discussion on the motion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor moved by Dillon, seconded by CO to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Last item under new business is 25-77, ordinance number 876, an ordinance to amend Apex A sections 2.01, rule applying to text section 2.02, definitions A through B, sections 2.04, definitions F through K, sections 2.07, definitions S through W of Article 2, sections Sections 5.03, accessory structures of the City of Saline zoning ordinance. I believe there'll be a modified motion this evening, so let's simply start with a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum from Community Development Director Aiken.
Move to acknowledge.
Thank you, Rice. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by CO. Acting City Manager Cole, do you care to give some very brief remarks this evening?
Absolutely. So this ordinance is being brought to you, and I apologize that we're going to have it revisit the Planning Commission once again. So unfortunately, there were some opportunities missed to ask important questions, and a few other items the Planning Commission did not get to review thoroughly. And I would look to Councilman Gearbaugh or even Mayor Marl to kind of explain that a little bit further, as it was not at that meeting. And so we would like to ask to have this returned back to the Planning Commission.
Mr. Gearbaugh, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I will. One of the concerns was because of the way the meetings were at the end of March and the one that was just last April, the one at March, 2 of our individuals were not able to attend because we were on spring break. And at the last meeting, unfortunately, Community Director Atkins could not attend. And so there were questions that rose. And even though we made a recommendation for council to review this, there was not a recommendation from Planning Commission to either adopt or deny, or not to adopt. And because there were other concerns that came up during that meeting, one example voted no against the minutes from the previous meeting, there's concerns that I feel strongly that this should go back to have those questions to be reviewed. There's a number of issues on here also that could affect our ADU policy. And as you may recall, this ordinance was reviewed less than maybe a year ago or a little over a year ago with Ben Harrington. And as this was part of a request from an individual, there was additional information and stuff that has changed as part of it. And it makes it important that we get this right when we're doing it forward. And the one concern is I received the information and concern from the chair of the committee that we feel that we should have this go back and review it. And there may or may not be changes again, but the discussion, because the individual wasn't there to be able to answer the questions from the members of the commission, I feel that this should be postponed until May 19th, and then it would go back to planning for the meeting that precedes that.
The 14th.
The 14th.
I'll second that motion.
Well, we actually got hold on, Mr. Chair. We got a motion on the floor simply to acknowledge receipt. Are there any additional questions regarding Mr. Gearbaugh's synopsis or the statement that were made by the acting city manager? Okay, then we'll proceed to vote. That's been moved by, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We looked at this in our policy committee, and I think we're strongly relying on planning to take a deep dive into this because we had a lot of questions too that aren't really in our purview. So I appreciate it making a thorough trip through
Well,
planning.
and honestly, I would recommend if you do have questions from that policy committee, and Chris was there, but that those should be presented back to, so that when we recommend it back to council, those have been addressed by planning.
Can do.
So if there is any of that information, I would appreciate that.
Any additional comments on the motion simply to acknowledge receipt? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to adopt, not to adopt, or is there a alternative motion that the group would like to
I
consider?
will move to postpone to a date certain of May 19th, but to first have it refer back to Planning Commission for review.
And you want to stipulate a date certain for Planning Commission as well as May
14th.
Okay, very good. You clear on that motion, Clerk Royal?
I'm working on it.
So it's going to be Mr. Gearbaugh's motion to postpone consideration of ordinance number 876 to our regular council meeting of May the 19th, with the understanding that Planning Commission will consider this item at their next regular meeting of May the 14th, 2025.
I'm just not sure that if they're not reviewing it until May 14th, it's going to make it on the May 19th.
We talked about it today. We'll put a placeholder on it. The support memo will be provided probably that Thursday as opposed to Wednesday afternoon.
Yes, I've got it.
Yeah, if it's sufficient, we can postpone it again at that time.
Yep, okay. Any additional discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries. We move on to the discussion portion of our agenda. First up are commission committee reports and other announcements. Again, I'm going to start with Councilmember Harmon and with Councilmember Gearbaugh and myself. Councilmember Harmon, do you have reports, other announcements, or updates from any commissions, committees, or task forces?
I do not.
Okay, Councilmember Lesh? Councilmember Seal?
Yes, this morning we met with the Saline Area Senior Citizens Board, and the primary topic of discussion was the fact that they're going to probably begin the school's bond work on the Saline Area Senior Center later this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, any announcements or updates from boards, committees, or commissions?
The only committee would be Urban County, and it is moving through its processes. We will the acting city manager and I will be having a meeting with them just to solidify our funds that are being banked. And then I have just one other thing. I want to make sure that we talk about hydrant flushing, so we can kind of.
Okay. Now. Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
Because hydrant flushing is going to be starting this coming weekend. No, is it this weekend? Next weekend. The weekend after. I've already received a call from one of the businesses wanting to understand, are they going to be impacted during the day? Is it going to be done at night? And then I'd like to make sure that the community understands in those 3 consecutive, even if they're not in your area, it's stirring up the pipes. So washing your sheets on Saturdays and Sundays may not be advisable during those times.
Do you want to comment on any of that, Acting City Manager Cole? Yes, the first round of flushing, which is on the north end of the city, including Colony Estates, Northview, Wildwood Sub, what would be Layer Farms, or formerly Layer Farms, along with Maplewood Farms, will be on May the 3rd and the 4th, so that's 2 weekends away. Then they move to the core of the city, which is on the 10th and 11th, and then Saline River Drive, Whitlock, and everything south of Michigan Ave the following weekend.
I have nothing else to add.
Okay, very good. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just
she asked about timing.
Oh, just yes, understanding for the businesses.
Director Halma, and I actually have a meeting tomorrow morning to review the timing to make sure that we're not going to be impacting any businesses. So we have a full review of that scheduled for tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Gearbaugh, reports, announcements, updates from any boards, commissions, or committees?
Just a couple of asset management, of course, met last week. I think it was last Friday? A week ago. And basically discussed some of the issues. We're still working upon an asset inventory and identifying, critical assets and things of that nature. But we also talked about the dam and other issues that are coming forward to us. And then a little bit more in-depth, which Bill Briggs mentioned about the flood and potential issues that we may want to address looking forward to hopefully prevent this, but knowing full well that our biggest thing is getting that tank in place in the future. The other thing, taxing boards met last Monday, basically to review the budgets, but we did at the end suggest, or I had recommended, as we look at our EDC budget, it basically is met its and we really should consider dissolving the EDC because it no longer really gets funds. But Acting Manager Cole will be reviewing that. I just want to make sure that potentially, if we wanted to reactivate it, it might be just retiring it, and those funds would then revert back to the general fund, approximately $17,000.
Very good. I'm sorry, Councilmember Rice, I'm actually going to end with you. So do you have any updates, announcements, reports from boards, commissions, or committees?
Yeah, lots of great news coming out of the parks. So we had 1.5 days of visiting parks in the community. We got amazing information on how things were funded, what the construction timelines looked like, things like that. Director Lambert took a ton of notes. We took a ton of pictures. We're going to be writing up a report. I'm going to take the charge on putting that together. And then that report is going to lead into some recommendations that the Parks Commission will have probably by the end of the year in some enhancements to, the primary was the thoughts of enhancements to Mill Pond and some of the things to replace the romp structure or enhance the romp structure, but we've also seen things that can potentially go in other parks on those trips. Those were great. So lots to report out on that, but those were actually really, really fruitful trips. And got lots of great information. Secondary to that, Arbor Day planting this year has been moved. We originally had promised Colony Park a tree, but we're moving that to Curtis Park Friday, April the 25th. And the reason is because DTE is going to give us 10 trees in the month of May for Colony Park. So Colony Park, as you know, does not have a lot of shade. So we are, Sunshine, the Parks and Rec Director is working with DPW to look at the types of trees that would work best in Colony Park. It's pretty wet at different times of the year, and locations for those. We also are receiving grant money for a shade structure for that park as well. So like a structure that will go over top a certain area of the playground. So if you want more information about that, ask Director Lambert. She's been working with one of the Parks Commissioners to secure that funding.
Councilman Rice, can I interrupt you real quick? The Arbor Day event, the planting at Curtis Park, what is the time for that on Friday?
4 p.m.
4 p.m., okay.
Yep. So we're trying to, we had the Parks and Rec master plan completed a couple of years ago. We're trying to check off some of that sort of low-hanging fruit on those where we can get funding, where we can get donations, things like that. Park commissioners have really done a great job in taking the lead on securing information, looking at different types of things so that it's, not on staff's shoulders to take care of that. It's kind of coming to staff already put together in a package. So Parks Commission's been doing fantastic. Also keep an eye out for some additional activities related around Earth Day. There's a couple of walks taking place. I think there's still 1 or 2 to go. And we also will be holding more of our Friends of the Parks program meetings. So that's, if you go to the Saline Parks and Rec, if you go to the Saline Parks Commission Facebook page, that information will pop up on there. We're looking for volunteers. It's been really great to have volunteers, who walk through the parks, who are, users of the parks, to also, see something, say something, or know that, hey, when you're in the park, if you're looking to do a little bit of work, here's a little area. We had folks help with a pollinator garden in Risden Park, so really building up a good volunteer program there. So kudos to our Parks Commissioners who have taken the charge on all of the things that we've heard from the community and really making a name for themselves and grabbing volunteers to help.
Very good. To your remarks about Earth Day, I think there's some festivities this Sunday. I know there's a book reading at Fine Print Bookshop at 2 o'clock, and then I believe there is in conjunction with some members of our Environmental Commission, they're showcasing a movie at the Saline District Library at 3 p.m., which the public is welcome to attend. Mr. Seale, did you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just a little comment, if I might, Your Honor.
Please.
And take advantage of my position as a councilperson. I'd like to publicly acknowledge Councilperson Rice. I availed myself of the opportunity to watch her testimony before the Senate Labor Committee this last week. She gave a very thoughtful, well-structured presentation and then answered some, I thought, some very in-depth questions that they had of her at the conclusion of her presentation. Having been there myself several times and testified, I know it takes a certain amount of chutzpah and courage to stand before that committee and make those comments. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to watching those remarks. Thank you for that, Mr. Seale. I actually think your testimony conflicted with our town hall that we hosted here with the county treasurer, which, as Mayor Pro Tem Dillon can attest, was not well attended, although I think we ended up having maybe 50 people watch the town hall later that day. But I will say the presentation provided by the treasurer, the acting city manager, and our county treasurer was one of the best I've seen. It really took you from your tax assessment to how those dollars are allocated and funded, how we disperse your tax bill, and the role of the city treasurer. We'll be sure to share that video later this week on YouTube because it was very informative.
Mayor, could we have the presentation and the slides were very helpful. Could we have those sent to us?
Absolutely.
An attachment.
Absolutely. I particularly like Treasurer Finch's slide with the dollar bill that was divided to show you exactly for every dollar you pay in property taxes how it is allocated to various taxing units, trying to debunk the misconception that when somebody pays their tax bill, the vast majority stays in the city of Saline. Quite contrary to that point, it's only about it's a little more than a quarter, with most of it going to education and then some going to the county, to the ISD, to WCC, and to the library. Do you want to make some brief comments on the strategic plan? Because we are going to have a discussion on the budget supplemental specific to the email that I sent, and I believe Mr. Gearbaugh sent an email on the subject forwarded from SEMCOG last week. So I know we're going to have a retreat in June to go over the strategic plan, but if you wanted to provide some brief remarks this evening, I would welcome that.
I'll be very, very brief. I provided to you all of the details, the to-do items that came directly out of our strategic plan with their due dates in an Excel document. That's for your use to review and start getting ready for our strategic plan update that we'll be doing during our retreat, where we'll spend several hours reviewing where we're at, where the progress is, and then evaluating if your priorities are still the same this year as they were for last year. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody got a copy of that, and that it's just really to review and start to think about what our next year's modifications will be for that plan.
Very good. Yes, if you have questions, concerns, would like to discuss with the city manager or any corresponding department heads, please reach out to her office. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
Quickly, have dates been established? June is filling up very fast. It's definitely a big graduation, and there's a lot of other events happening, and I feel like right now we're holding 3 full days for city manager interviews, so I'd like to have some firm dates to put on the calendar kind of moving forward. So once those are established, if we could just get them out there.
If I may, the city manager interview dates, which were emailed out, I think, twice now by El Getzman, those are in May.
No, I know. I'm saying we're holding 3 full days right now for city manager things. I don't want to hold temporary dates. I'd like to know for sure when we're going to do the strategic plans. It's very difficult to block an entire day until we, with a possibility.
HR Director Getchman is assisting with that, and we just spoke about it this morning, so hopefully those dates will come out soon, those choices.
Very good. Anything else on the strategic plan? Then let's transition to our last item, which is the budget supplemental information. So as indicated in some messages, Congresswoman Dingell will be resubmitting her community-based projects that were approved by her office in 2024 through the congressional funding process again here in 2025. The acting city manager and I met with Georgia Frost from her office a few weeks ago. I've had a subsequent phone call with her district chief of staff, who will be sending along some electronic correspondence for us to slightly update our request from 2024. As indicated via email today, Mr. Gearbaugh had forwarded to the city manager a message that came out from SEMCOG, Southeastern Michigan Councils of Government, I believe last week. Is that correct? And then I had a text message exchange with Morgan Foreman, our state representative. Not exactly sure what's going on, but I think the majority in the House of Representatives they're playing a few games with the minority caucus because generally there's 30 to 60 days of advance notice provided to members to submit supplemental budget requests, Representative Foreman was just provided the information in the past week. So the unfortunate reality is we have a April 24th deadline that is not, there's no flexibility. So we need to provide information through her office, which I think she will likely support and endorse and recommend before the conclusion of this week. And so I'm going to turn it over to the city manager. But one thing we want to accomplish tonight, because we need to accomplish tonight, is determine what funding project or projects we are going to be requesting support from the state of Michigan on.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 3 projects ready for submittal at this point in time. We have the wastewater treatment plant renovation that we can ask about. We have the green space, and we have the rec center. Those 3 projects are all prepared, shovel ready to go. I mean, we have the information ready to go. We can send it out to apply for the direct appropriation immediately. We also need to have a good discussion, and I don't know if now is the best time or if we want to wait until our planning session about what projects we want to look at for next year. Because we get asked every year from the feds and from the state what projects we want to submit. So I don't know if we want to open the floor to that discussion now or have a discussion about it later, but it's certainly something that we should be thinking about. But those are the 3 that we have prepared and ready to go.
I would recommend, to your latter point, having a work meeting sometime in the next 30 to 60 days to discuss big profound, impactful projects that are likely to be pursued or initiated in the next 12 to 18 months, that we could develop some material and a narrative on and request funding through our state, federal, or even our county representatives in the subsequent fiscal year. Here's my own take, and then I'll turn it over to Councilmember Harmont, and we'll work our way through the dais. Since there's a federal request for the rec center, it would not be my recommendation to ask for support for the rec center from the state of Michigan. If you look at and it is a laundry list of direct appropriations that have been approved by the state of Michigan over the past 2 to 5 years, many of them focus on infrastructure projects with a broad impact on the community, affecting residents, business owners, all property owners. There's usually some added points if it has an environmental impact, and if you're planning for future growth and job creation. So it would be my preference, my personal preference, to do something on the infrastructure front. And if you're saying that we have the corresponding material to make a strong case for additional investment in our wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation, I would probably be inclined to support that. Again, I wish we would have had the opportunity to have a more holistic discussion, but we're working up against a tight time frame, which, again, there's no flexibility. The materials have to be in by the 24th of this month. Councilmember Harmont, any thoughts on the matter?
Does it impede our efforts if we ask for too many? We're required to limit it to 3.
So I was corresponding with Representative Foreman via text message today, and then I asked her to email the forms to myself and then to the acting city manager. I also forwarded the forms on to the city treasurer. I didn't have a chance this afternoon to thoroughly review them. I get the sense from the tone and tenor of our text message exchange that's probably one project, but we can certainly read through that, and if there's an opportunity to request funding for more than one, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Well, I'll defer to the acting city manager, though, and if she has any insights on that particular question or concern.
I would absolutely just replicate exactly what you said. We haven't time to thoroughly review it. It just came in today. So after we kind of get some time and see if it would hurt our chances to be asking for more or be acceptable, generally in cases like this, they want you to pick your best top project that you want to put forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Councilmember Lesh?
What is the timeline that Tyler, was it supposed to be April that we were going to get notified?
By the end of April, yes.
I actually had a text message exchange with him last week. He thinks it's going to go before the MEDC board probably either next week or the following week.
Okay. But I would go along with wastewater treatment plant. Yeah.
Councilmember Seal?
Wastewater treatment plant strikes me as probably the most appropriate. Saline Area Senior Center, which is one of the other hats that I wear. I don't know if you might want to reach out to Nancy Cowan. It's probably kind of late in the game to do that, but I was going to say they're having to spend a significant amount of their own money for furnishings because of a shortfall from what the school board millage was originally going to, I think, dedicate to the Saline Area Senior Center.
We can make note of that. Again, it's not. I wouldn't feel comfortable forwarding those documents to the senior center without authorization or without consent from our state representative. But we can certainly mention to her in subsequent conversations this week or to her staff that there might be interest from the Saline Area Senior Center or Saline Area Schools to apply for a direct appropriation. Okay. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon.
So obviously, the wastewater treatment plant is, first and foremost for things, but I mean, we also have the dam. I think the dam is a really important aspect of our community that whatever path we take is going to need funding.
Please.
Actually, City Engineer Humphreys indicated to me that the dam would be a phenomenal choice for us for our next year pick. We don't have the materials ready to go. I don't think that we could get those together in 3 or 4 days. To get the packet of information together. I would hate to turn in something that hasn't been thoroughly reviewed, gone through our processes. I feel like that would be a mistake where we've got something that's perfected and we've used in other situations where we know that it's a need of ours.
Thank you. Councilmember Gearbaugh?
Yeah, I agree. In the future, the dam, wastewater treatment plant. The other one I was thinking of, do we have any projects for storm sewer I&I concerns or issues? And then the other one is the sidewalk for Michigan Avenue. But can we submit that knowing that SEMCOG and using a state of Michigan grant, will they allow that?
I think that it would be allowed, however, I think it would hurt our chances. The wastewater treatment plant renovation is something that I think would bode better for guarding the actual dollars.
And that was kind of my support on that, but I didn't know if you were looking for new ones for next year, and so some of those might come out there.
I would concur, and I mentioned this to the city treasurer earlier today. Again, based on the criteria that was outlined in the form, and I gave it just a very quick once-over, but also based on the number of projects and the type of projects that have been approved in the past. Water usually rises to the top. When you talk about water quality, stormwater infiltration, wastewater, it's usually, there's a broad impact, and the appropriators specifically usually find those types of projects appealing.
And the other water project could be, if for next year, would be the issue that we have at the current well house, where we have the inability to pump the one well at the other time when the other, because of the volume or whatever, we'd need to change that. But at that point, if we're looking at something outside of the picture.
Councilmember Rice?
Yeah, I agree with wastewater treatment plant, mentioning that, we didn't get the funding that we expected last year, the amount, and then also, really push into that building capacity. The wastewater treatment plant will build capacity, but we also need to, relieve the burden upon the current taxpayer base. So I think if you hit those kind of keynotes, that should hopefully sell it.
Noted, thank you.
I think you have your consensus, at least for the state supplemental. Go ahead, Mr. Seal.
Talking about water, what about the new water tower? Where does that fall?
I had that listed too as a water tower.
Again, I don't think any of them are bad ideas. It's just we got to be able to turn this around in about 48 hours.
Were you talking about for next year?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great consideration.
Yep. Water tower, sidewalks, connectivity, stormwater infiltration. I think those are all wonderful ideas.
We just took care of a half a day of work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Will you confirm or provide us, council, either in your weekly communique or in a separate email, the application that's submitted with the state subsequent to submittal?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I will text, Representative Foreman tonight and let her know that the consensus was wastewater treatment plant. We will have our application in with a copy provided to her staff before the close of business on the 24th. Okay, very good. Real quick before we get to last public comment period.
Right, on the budget supplement, I guess I thought we were doing something different on this document, so was this just for our information?
The budget supplemental was provided, and you're welcome to ask us questions about it. Also wanted to let you know that on the 23rd, we have open office hours where both Treasurer Finch and I are holding our schedules open so that you can come in and ask any questions that you have. If that day or time doesn't work out, please let us know. We're happy to accommodate and give you all the time that you want with the budget.
We're having a work meeting in advance of our next regular council meeting to go over the budget again.
That is correct.
Okay.
And questions that are asked during those individual meetings, we'll make sure to make a list of those and bring those forward so that everyone gets the same information.
Right. The one big question I had on this is just to start identifying, what is the time frame to get a millage on the ballot for this year?
The deadline is June 29th.
Okay.
June 29th for a November ballot?
For November?
No, I think it's much later. I think it's August something, isn't it?
Well, because it has to go to the county to get approved.
Right.
June 29th is what I have for the charter amendment, so I'm assuming that it's all the same day or the same time.
Can you confirm that? Because June seems a little early for the November ballot.
We'll check it.
Yeah. You could be right, but just...
Because council packets are also due.
Rec Center.
June 22nd.
June 22nd is when council packets are due, or council has to be sent in for the November election. So there takes a long time to get everything processed, but yes.
Okay, yeah, if you could confirm that, that would be great. Okay.
I'd like to sort of understand if we're looking at putting something on the ballot and understand that process, June's going to come up very quickly.
I think, well, more important than just providing us the date for when we need to get something on the November ballot, I think looking ahead probably the next 8 to 12 months of what's the deadline then for the February ballot. Because if I recall correctly, it was sponsored by then Senator Hammerstrom, who is our representative in the state Senate. The Michigan Election Consolidation Act, which I think dates back to 2003, 2004, limits municipalities and any governmental jurisdictions to 4 dates to put things on the ballot: February, May, August, and November. So I think what would be valuable to this body as we considered a whole host of ballot proposals is what, including additional charter amendments, is what's the deadline for November 2025, what's the deadline for February 2026, May 2026, and August 2026.
I believe they got rid of the February date. I think there's only 3 dates now.
Okay, I'd want to have that confirmed as well.
I will.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
We will confirm those and send that out.
Okay. You could be correct.
And we don't really have all those dates because the state of Michigan gets those out, and we've only got through the year of 2025.
Okay.
And then December, they will make up 2026. So they're not in any rush, and I can't create those dates.
Whatever information you could provide for council to consider future ballot proposals would be very advantageous. Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further, we will look forward then to another budget workshop on May the 5th and encourage folks to meet with you and the city treasurer if they have questions. If they don't feel that a meeting is necessary but would like to put questions or concerns, comments into writing so they can be addressed at our next regular meeting, we would encourage you to do so. We come now to the second public comment period. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward and make comment or question to city council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested, but of course not required to state their name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? Easy enough. Then I would defer to the city clerk. Did we receive any written comments in advance of tonight's meeting in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time? Yes, sir. Easy enough. Then if we have no additional business to consider this evening, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn this regular council meeting at 10:07 p.m.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. Is there a second? Oh boy, I'll let CO be the second. I'll get you on the next one, Councilmember Rice. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.